think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
It is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
And Bayern Munich are going to be favourites for me against anybody at home in the world. The 03-04 season, actually, Olympiacos have won 8 of the last 10 domestic league campaigns, so there is only really one team in Greece, which we kind of already knew.
Because things have been pretty much decided, just as a quick glance before we go through the table, PSG is going to lock up this thing with 1 more point. Monaco's solidly in second place. Lille is going to be in that Champions League qualifier position, 7 points ahead of Saint Etienne. If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
I am your host, Joe Usello. My trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Ben, how are you tonight? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Big 4-0, episode 40 of Low Limit Football on Low Limit Poker Radio. I am your host, Joe Usello. Joining me, as always, tonight, my trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Ben, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, Joe. Yourself?
Good. I want to wish you a happy new year now as the transfer window is officially closed. Although some people have filed for extensions on some of the transfer they're working on, which we'll talk about in our transfer window section. But boy, Ben, what a flurry here at the end. I've been watching Twitter the last half hour or so, and it just seems like it's been deal after deal after deal after deal, and it's amazing. And some of them are confirmed, some of them are not, and it's been crazy. What are your thoughts, before we get rolling on the show?
Yeah, I mean, we was just talking just before we came off air about Falcao. We don't really know where he is at the moment, if he is anywhere. So hopefully, come the end of the show, we'll have a bit more of an idea of the ones that have gone through. And I know that Ben Arthur, apparently Hull have just been given a 2-hour extension by the Premier League. So yeah, we've got an exciting show today and loads of transfers, and we'll try and cover the ones that we can, and the ones that are confirmed.
Yeah, and I believe Danny Welbeck had been given an extension on the transfer as well. So we've got a couple of deals that are still in the works, including who knows what's going on with Falcao, whether he's going to City, whether he's going to Man United on loan, whether he's going to Real Madrid on loan. Hopefully before the end of the show we'll actually have an answer to that. So the other thing I want to mention real quick. Tonight we're going to be joined in the 7 o'clock hour by George D. Metellus from BeIN Sport. I'm very, very, very excited to have him on. George is one of my favorite hosts on many of the shows on BeIN Sport. He was co-host with Ian Joy on Wow Time there. He's hosted The Locker Room, which is currently on right now on BeIN Sport. But you can mainly find George on the weekends doing kind of the sports highlights show with many of the talking heads over at BeIN. So very excited to have him. I am efforting next week for our 1-year anniversary to have his co-worker Jeremy St. Louis come on in the 7 o'clock hour next week. Jeremy frequently hosts the Locker Room, which is going on right now. So for him to be free from 6 to 7 is next to impossible. But hopefully he will be able to make it on sometime after 7 o'clock next week. Tonight we're also hoping to be joined, and we're not sure, we haven't had confirmation from her yet, by Susie Scharf, who writes for Bayern Munich. And she's got some great insight on there as well. So, Ben, also joined in the chat right now by Tim Bezbachenko. So I'm really hoping that's Sir Bob.
If it's not, we're bringing fans from far and away. So
exactly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to cut through our normal business. Our co-host Rob will be hosting. Well, actually, he'll be coming on at about 7 o'clock. Between you and me, Ben, he's the youngest one and still gets to play soccer. So we just have to dream. But what we're going to do is we're going to cover the league news. We'll go through all the scores from the past week. and we're going to try to hit up the Champions League tables and Europa League tables as they were drawn last week as well. And then hopefully at that point we'll have Rob back to chit-chat for a minute, and then we'll be joined by George. So, Ben, why don't you take us over to La Liga and kick us off?
Yeah, we're just going to go to the Liga now. If you just give me 2 seconds, because my internet's running just a tad slow. I'm guessing it knows that I am. I need it at the moment. Just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just the page is not loading.
No, if you want, I've got the page up. I can give you the scores.
Yeah, if you can just do the first
definitely.
couple.
So we'll start on Friday. No problem. We're already having computer issues. Pretty normal for us. On Friday, August 29th, is when we kicked off the La Liga week, actually week 2. And we started off with Getafe with a 1-0 win at home over Almeria, and Valencia with a 3-0 win over 10-man Malaga. On Saturday, Cordoba 1-1 draw with Celta Vigo. Athletic Bilbao 3-0 over Levante. Atletico Madrid 2-1 over Eibar. That was a match that Atletico made it 2-0 in the first half, I believe. Eibar did pull a goal, right before time to get closer, but was never able to materialize anymore. The official La Liga team of low limit football this year. So, moving forward on Saturday, we had Sevilla on the road 2-1 over Espanyol, and on Sunday, Barcelona 1-0 over Villarreal. And I believe that was a Sandro goal late in the match. Villarreal normally at Madrigal gives Barcelona a lot of trouble, and this week was no different. I did get to see a little bit of that match on the weekend. Deportivo 2-2 draw with Rayo Vallecano. Real Sociedad 4-2 over Real Madrid. This is probably one we're going to want to chit-chat about real quick, Ben. And Elche 1-1 draw with Granada on the Real Madrid-Real Sociedad match. Again, it ended 4-2. That match opened with a goal in the 5th minute by Sergio Ramos on a corner kick header. And then Gareth Bale on a pretty move at the top of the box scored in the 11th minute to make it 2-0 Barca. I'm sorry, Real Madrid. But then just soon after, in the 35th minute, we had Inigo Martinez scoring for Real Sociedad to make it 2-1. David Zurutaza in the 41st minute to draw level with Madrid at 2-2. And in the second half, Zurutaza again adding a goal to make it 3-2, and then Carlos Vela on what was marginally viewed upon as a handball, scoring to make it 4-2. Again, in this match, we had no Cristiano Ronaldo as he's been out with an injury. Some of the talking heads on television, they said they weren't really happy with Toni Kroos, that he had a good first half, but in the second half of this match kind of disappeared a little bit. So, and I didn't get a chance to see enough of this match. It looked like all the goals were legitimate, including the Carlos Vela goal. But Ben, Real Madrid going up 2-0, 11 minutes into a match, to suddenly be turned around and lose a match 4-2. I think it's the first time they've given up 4 goals in like 2 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, it's a shock for everybody. I mean, not only for Real Madrid to lose, but I mean to be 2-0 up. Sometimes you just can't explain these things. I mean, maybe a bit of complacency is probably the only thing you can really put it down to. I mean, for me, that the better team on paper, the team for me, the best team in the league. So, complacency is all I can say about it, really.
Yeah. So, and again, it's still early in La Liga, and
of course, yeah.
And we're also looking at a Real Madrid side, like we said, that they had no Cristiano Ronaldo, who's still kind of suffering under some injuries. So, it's been a tough ride for him. But I wanted to just give a quick glance at the tables, just for laughs, because we're only 2 matches in. Barca's the only team to win their first 2 matches. They've scored 4 goals, and Barcelona has not given up a goal yet, Ben. So maybe the defensive changes and the defensive additions that they've made with Jeremy Mathieu maybe going to pay dividends for them. There's still quality in the midfield. They've had no Andres Iniesta so far this season, as he's been out with injury. Been left off the Spanish side for their friendlies coming up, or their qualification matches coming up this week in the international break. So Barca, moving along. Neymar missed the first game from injury. they've really had, for me, Ben, a nice influx of youth with Muniz. I'm sorry, Munir. Fantastic player. Pulled him up from Barcelona B. Just been fantastic player overall. Scored a goal in that first match against Elche in week 1. So Barca's the only team to win both their matches. Valencia is on 4 points with a host of other teams, including Atletico, Sevilla, to name a few. Then there's a slew of teams on 3 points, including Athletic Bilbao, Real Madrid, Villarreal, Malaga, Sociedad, and Eibar. So, and right now in the relegation zone, as we always like to talk about it, Levante on no points. They have not scored a goal yet and given up 5. Elche has a point and Cordoba has a point, but that's about it. So, again, all the leagues are going to be off this weekend because of the international break. So we'll have to, tune in a couple of weeks, which is, Ben, if we do line up a big show like we're talking about, it would be kind of nice to have the space of not having to deal with the leagues. I mean, we can dip into the transfers a little bit deeper, don't you think?
Oh, that's the plan. I think it's good for us to just have a week that we can actually talk about the transfers exactly. Yeah. What with so many going through, and my pages have finally decided to load. We're not tuned from having a few technical problems, but yeah, just to say, even when we come back, there's no particular standout games from the Spanish Primera going forward, so there's nothing really to preview either, really, coming out of La Liga.
Right. So let's go over to Ligue 1. Let's go over to France, which, Ben, I do want to talk about one quick interesting note in France when we get to it, and that's going to be the PSG match. But let's start out with on Friday's action, Marseille 4-0 over Nice with a Dimitri Payet brace in that one. Monaco and Lille with a 1-1 draw. Falcao was held out of that match, as we know why. A Dimitar Berbatov goal there to tie it about, I believe, the 60th minute, saving Monaco a point there. Nantes 1-0 over Montpellier. Toulouse 1-0 over a 10-man Evian. Rennes with a 1-0 road win over Caen, a 10-man Caen as well. Lens 4-2 over Reims. 4 different scores for Lens in that one, including 2 penalty kicks for Lens. Reims drew a red card in that match as well. So Lens 4-2. Ben, nice to see Lens kind of winning a couple of matches here. I believe they won this match. They also won. I'm taking a look real quick. They have won their last 2 matches. They had beaten Lyon 1-0 last week, and they're 4-2 again this week. Because Lens is that team that basically wasn't able to get their transfer window going. Do you know what I mean? So with all the financial issues that they were having. So it's nice to see. Moving forward, Lorient home win 4-0 over Guingamp. Valentin Lavine brace and Jordan Ayew scoring in that one for Lorient. On Sunday, Bordeaux and Bastia play to a 1-1 draw. Bordeaux, on this one, Ben, 23 shots taken by Bordeaux in this match, only 4 shots on goal, as opposed to Bastia, who had 8 shots taken and 4 on goal. And that's an interesting one. We'll talk about that one in the transfer window, Ben. Ben's messaging me. We'll definitely talk about that one in the transfer window. Metz, moving forward. Metz 2-1 over Lyon. Lacazette scoring for Lyon in the loss. And in the match that I want to talk about, Ben, PSG with a thrashing. I mean, it was just a flat-out beating, 5-0 over Saint Etienne. And I don't know if you've seen the highlights from this one, Ben, but Stefan Rouillère, the goaltender, really made a meal of a ball that was played back to him in this match, which led to the first own goal back in the 24th minute. And I do see, thanks for that note, Ben. But Zlatan Ibrahimovic adding a brace. The previously injured Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who was supposed to be out for 3 weeks I think it was 4 to 6 weeks with that pulled muscle in his abdominal area, scoring 3 goals, and Edison Cavani adding a goal in this one as well, Ben. Just to give you some statistical information on this one, shots on this one, 13-8 in favor of PSG, 8-2 on target, and PSG holding 65% of the possession over what we would say is an above average Saint Etienne team in this league, Ben. So, kind of shocking to see them absolutely just destroyed there in this match.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I do think that any team that's got Cavani and Abramovich, especially in a league that's, without sounding that I'm putting the French league down, but with a forward line of Cavani and Abramovich, yeah, it's so strong for me. I just expect PSG to pretty much walk over this league now, especially with Rodriguez leaving Monaco.
Yeah, definitely. So, and thanks guys for letting me know that I was logged out of chat there. So, but that's going to close it up for Ligue 1. Like you said, since the league is off, we don't have any matches to really preview or highlight. We're going to probably kick that whole segment off when we get back. When everybody gets back, we'll start to preview some matches. So, Ben, why don't you take us over to the Bundesliga? And unless you want to add in the big transfer news that just broke.
The Manchester City transfer news.
Yeah, that one.
Yes. We'll just go back to the page because I've lost the page. It's just been confirmed now that Valencia have confirmed the signing of Negredo on a season-long loan, I believe. So Negredo's gone to Valencia from Manchester City. This is a bit of an interesting one for me, Joe. I was kind of looking forward to seeing him at Man City this year. I don't think really one season was enough. He looked a good striker, good finisher, strong and decent in the air as well. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this, Joe? As well, I mean, they've had a couple of injuries to the strikers as well. I honestly feel, especially a team that's challenging on so many fronts, to take a striker out, out of your squad of the strength of Negredo. With me, I mean, unless anyone's come in that I've missed, and if I didn't, I apologise. But what do you think of this, Joe? Do you think they're leaving themselves light if they're going to try and challenge on 4 or 5 fronts?
I do. I really do. This move makes sense if Falcao was coming. Then I think it's a decent move, and it's a good move for Negredo. But as it stands, no, I think this is not not the greatest move at all. I think they're leaving themselves a little short up top. Aguero's been injury prone. Dzeko, Jovetic has had a little bit of a resurgence. As our esteemed colleague in chat would mention, I personally would feel more comfortable if they had that extra striker, because they're going to be playing in all these different competitions. They're going to need the depth, and losing Negredo, even though they were going to be down about 3 months, from him. I don't know. And Sir Bob in the chat is saying that they have plenty of attacking midfielders, and I certainly agree with that statement. But it just feels to me like they're just leaving themselves a little short at the top of the formation there. I personally would rather have seen them taken, and I'm a big fan of Alvaro Negredo. I think he's a great talent. I think he did very, very well last year until he got injured right around Christmas time. So yeah, Ben, I'm with you. I think this is kind of I'm not so keen on this one. Sir Bob, who is our Man City expert, doesn't seem to have an issue with the move. So we'll just and he's saying that Negredo wanted out. So I do tend to believe him. So I still think that, just because Negredo wanted out doesn't mean you have to move him. You can certainly still hold on to him. He's still going to end up being injured. But he's saying that they're not up. Sir Bob's saying that they're not short up top with the attacking midfielders they have. I personally don't like it, Ben. What about you?
I think really, for me, Man City, they're more. I don't see them playing 1-1 a lot. I think it's better for them to play 2 strikers up front. I personally think that Aguero and then either Negredo or Dzeko playing alongside them, playing 2, for me seems to work better. I think that they are leaving themselves short. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Jovetic as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, he wants to come in and prove himself, but now he's going to have to stand up, and he's going to have to be counted now, because if you're only going to leave yourself with 3 strikers, like I said, to challenge on so many fronts against really top quality teams, and it's not only that, you get an injury earlier in a game, and or you get any injuries now, before the next transfer window, and you're leaving yourself with 2 strikers. And I think in the competitions, especially the ones that Man City are going to try and be challenging to win, you're looking at the Champions League and the Premier League. These are really tough leagues, tough leagues, and I think you need real strong strength in depth. For me, you need at least 3 real strong strikers and a fourth one to back that up, like I said, because you get a few injuries and then suddenly you leave yourself short and you can't get anyone from anywhere. So yeah, I personally think it's a bad move. But then if he wanted to leave and he wasn't going to play his best when he was there, then
it's tough.
You can't really do too much at it. But then if this was going to happen, you've got to ask yourself the question: what's Pellegrini doing, not going? And I'm not saying you have to get the best striker in the world, but why has he not gotten out and got a full striker?
Right. That's the thing. I would hope that he would have gone out and replaced him, before he made the move. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it plays out, because now there's there's really no chance of him picking up anybody unless the Falcao thing does happen for them, which it doesn't appear like it's going to. So let's move on. Let's head over to the Bundesliga.
Yep, we're just going up to the Bundesliga now. First of all, we're starting on the Friday. There's one game on the Friday. It was Augsburg at home to Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund squeezed this one 3-2 in quite a thrilling game. Just going to Saturday to round them up. Start off the Saturday games, we had Bayer Leverkusen beating Hertha Berlin 4-2. Stuttgart losing 2-0 at home to FC Cologne. Werder Bremen drawing 1-1 with TSG Hoffenheim. Hamburg losing 3-0 at home to SC Paderborn. Wolfsburg drawing 2-2 with Frankfurt. And surprisingly, the game of the day, really, well, the surprise of the day, should we say, is the 1-1 draw. Schalke 1, Bayern Munich 1. From what I could tell of the game, I mean, obviously you'd expect Bayern Munich to have a lot of possession that they did. Lewandowski with a goal, but it was actually quite a close game. The possession didn't really count for too much for Bayern Munich. 10 shots for Bayern Munich, 4 on target. Schalke 8, 4 on target, quite close when it actually came down to making use of the ball. And you could say this is just early season. We kind of seen it, a little bit with Man City and teams like that, and Man United, where the results are not coming as you would expect them to be. But I do think teams sometimes take a little while to get going. But I think we're just finding that all the leagues are just getting stronger, and none of these games are givens anymore. And if you don't turn up, if you don't make the most of your chances, then you're not going to get the points that you would be expected to get. So, yeah, another surprise. But we'll move on. We'll just go to the Sunday game. If you just give me a second. Yeah, just around at the weekend. We had 2 Sunday games. Unfortunately, a very boring Sunday in Germany. It was Mainz 0, Hanover 0, and Freiburg 0, Borussia Mönchengladbach 0. So, yeah, not the most interesting of scorelines. Not much of a Super Sunday in Germany. Just gonna take a look at the table for you for giggles, considering it's only 2 games gone. Mm-hmm. We have Bayer Leverkusen leading the way with 2 wins. And then we have SC Paderborn actually in second on 4 points with a 3-goal difference, and SG Hoffenheim also on 4 points in third with a 2-goal difference, and the same Cologne in fourth, but with less goals scored. As far as the bottom goes, FC Augsburg, the only team to not pick up a point yet. They've lost both their games and they're on 0 points, and then we have 6 teams on 1 point, but I'm not going to go into too much detail because, like I said, it's only 2 games to go, but hopefully this division shapes up to be a bit more competitive than it was last year, although I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. One thing I want to add in the Bundesliga section is American Julian Green, who made big news as he was being kept on Bayern Munich's A team this year and was going to play for the top flight, was loaned out this week to Hamburg. So for me, this is a good new move and a lousy move. It's a lousy move in the fact that he won't get as much notoriety because he's not on the Bayern Munich side, but this is a great move for him because he'll probably get more playing time, and in a top quality league like the German Bundesliga, that's only going to be good. That's only going to be good for him. So I think this is a good move overall. So the other thing, it's fun to see Paderborn there. At the top of the table. I know we're only 2 matches in, so. But it's that is definitely
it's Europe going forward.
yeah, exactly. So let's head over to the Serie A. Actually, Ben, I got to say, we're kind of ripping through these quicker than I thought we were going to. But let's head over to it. Serie A finally got into playing real meaningful matches this week. Sir Bob had pointed out to me that they're starting last because it takes time to fix the table. So we'll just go with that. But at Serie A, it started out with Juventus 1-0 over Chievo, and Juventus scoring an own goal, or basically going ahead on an own goal. They originally credited to Cáceres, but was an own goal. Again, no Pirlo in this one. That he's going to be out for a few more weeks with an injury. So we'll have to see how Juventus does moving forward. Everyone talks about the Allegri deal and how the fact that Juve is really in trouble. This team actually, for me, if anything, got a little bit better than last year. They added Morata from Real Madrid. Allegri seems to want to move them through to the Champions League, at least past the group stages. So we're going to see. These guys, obviously they're in for a challenge, but we're going to have to see how well they do. The other team, the team that's really, tagged as the next Scudetto winner, Roma 2-0 over Fiorentina. Fiorentina getting some bad news today. Giuseppe Rossi is going to have surgery again on his right knee. Just can't seem to take a break. He's had ACL reconstruction on the knee. He's really having a tough go of it. So Niangolan and Gervinho with goals in that one for Roma 2-0 over Fiorentina. Moving on to Sunday's action. Atalanta 0-0 with Verona. AC Milan 3-1 over Lazio. Goals by Honda, Muntari, and a Menez penalty goal. And in this one, a Candreva penalty saved by Diego Lopez. AC Milan in this one, Ben, really look like they're taking they're playing a little more free-flowing. They're playing a little more comfortable. And it could be that they're just feeling better under Pippo Inzaghi than they did under Clarence Seedorf. I was kind of surprised to hear from David Amoyal a week or two ago that the players at AC Milan hated Clarence Seedorf, and I never expected that. But clearly, the way these guys played this weekend, Inzaghi's really got them playing the way he wants to have them play. And this Lazio side is not a pushover either. They're a decent side. So things are looking way better for AC Milan, in my opinion, and we'll just see if they can carry that through the season. So moving forward, Palermo, welcome back to the Serie A. 1-1 draw with a 10-man Sampdoria. Cesena, 1-0 over Parma. Napoli, 2-1 road win over Genoa. Callejon and De Guzman scoring in that one for Napoli. Sassuolo, 1-1 draw with Cagliari. Udinese, 2-0 over Empoli. And Antonio Di Natale brace on that one for the old man, who actually was going to retire at the end of last season. Opens the season with 2 goals, so good for him. Last but not least, Torino and Inter 0-0 draw in that one. Inter playing with 10 men in that one. And Torino really going to have trouble, Ben, this year finding the goals. I know they just added a Mauri probably a couple of hours ago in the transfer window, but a Mauri is really somebody that is he's not the striker that Cerci and Immobile were. So we're gonna have to see if that pans out for them to because you're gonna wonder where the goals are gonna come from. So no sense in going over the tables as we have at least let's see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in first place at the moment on 3 points. And apparently are we off air? Sir Bob is saying that we're off the air right now, but I'm showing that we have full connection here. So
can you hear us, guys?
Let's see if Sir Bob can refresh his feed here, because I was going to say it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with our transfer rate. So let's see if that works it out. So Ben, let's close out the Serie A, which I'm sure Sir Bob didn't want to listen to anyway. Let's move it over to the Premier League, but let's get confirmation that he's back in live before we do anything else. Let me just. Oh, yep, we are back. Okay, good. So Sir Bob can hear us, thankfully, and we're back in live. So let's head over to the Premier League, the last league that we normally cover, Ben, and let's see what's happened this weekend. I know it was a pretty exciting weekend of matches.
It was, yeah. I mean, I don't think we can brisk through this. There's some interesting story points to talk about. We will leave the Manchester City one till the end because we have a corner. But a few things to talk about really. Joe, one I want to touch on a little bit is Burnley Man United. For two reasons really. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm not the biggest Burnley fan, and secondly, the Man United rebuild that seems to be going on, where as Joe says, anyone and everyone has been linked with Manchester United in this transfer window, and they've spent a fair bit of money as well. But obviously a really on paper, should we say, weak Burnley team. Obviously missing Scott Vokes as well up front, so they're only playing with one of the strikers from last year, really. But they held their own, really, against Man United. Obviously, Man United had a lot more of the ball, which you would expect. But there wasn't really that much in the teams, really. I mean, just taking a look at the stats, I mean, Burnley actually had more shots, 9-7, and more on target, 3-2. Manchester United didn't impress me at all. I know I'm going to put a lot of this down to the fact they've got some new players there, and if you look at their backline at the moment, Tyler Blackett's having to play, which for me, I don't want to be too harsh, shall we say, Joe, but I'm sure you could stick Joe in there and he'd do as good a job. Tyler Blackett for me, he's been found out on a few occasions. For me, obviously this Manchester United formation, anyone that's had a chance to watch it, they've changed this year. They're playing a 3-5-2 formation. And I think the fact that the three central defenders haven't been that strong this year, combined with the fact that the five midfielders don't seem to know their positions defensively, has definitely been their downfall for me so far in the league. But we'll see how they go going forward. But I think this team, until they fully gel in, is going to have some problems against this team. And I really, for their sake, hope that on the training field that they're working on the midfield defensively, because they're not helping the defence out at all, and they're all letting the runners go. But ironically, in a game that Manchester United couldn't defend, the Burnley team couldn't break down either, and it finished 0-0. So it was not as exciting as it perhaps could have and should have been. But anyway, moving forward, a couple of games I want to talk about are, we're going to mention at least Newcastle 3, Crystal Palace 3. Joe, I know he's talking about the change of management at Crystal Palace, Tony Pulis leaving, because he wasn't backed. I think that this for me was, obviously we said last week, it's absolute travesty that he left, but they still went to St James's Park, not an easy place to go. Newcastle are a really good team, and get a draw the way you can get a draw. I mean, if you can do it 3-3 and have some fun while you're there, then do that. But obviously a big high-scoring game, and I think another reason that shows that this league is really tough, and you can't take teams like Crystal Palace and these supposed smaller teams for granted anymore, even when you are at home, because they're not going to lie down and die anymore, and Crystal Palace have shown that. We had Queen's Park Rangers getting the first win on the board, at beating Sunderland 1-0 at home, promoted team from last year. We had Swansea beating West Brom 3-0. West Ham losing 3-1 at home to Southampton. And the last game of Saturday that I want to talk about is the Everton-Chelsea game, Joe. 9 goals in this game. Everton losing 6-3 at home at Goodison Park. Just to give you the goal scorers, we had Diego Costa scoring for Chelsea in the first minute, and then Branislav Ivanovic scoring for Chelsea in the 3rd minute, followed by Seamus Coleman making it 3-0 to Chelsea, and then we had, it was 2-1. Morales scored on the stroke of half time, and then it was Seamus Coleman making it 3-1, and then Naismith 3-2, and then Matic made it 4-2, and then getting struggling with my phone. Then it went 4-3, 5-3, 6-3. But Matic, Ramirez, and Costa were the goals. A really, really exciting game to watch. And the thing that surprised me in this game, I don't know if you got to see any of it, Joe, was the amount of ball that Everton had. I thought this Chelsea midfield would hold on to the ball a lot, and it would be knocked back and forth. And I didn't expect Everton, albeit a good Everton team, to have this, to have as much of the ball as they did. I couldn't believe it when I watched the game, but when I looked at the stats afterwards, that Everton had 61% possession, against, for me, the best midfield in the Premier League, and they just held on to the ball so well. But Chelsea took their chances. Like I said, the shots are close as well. Everton 16, 6 on target. Chelsea 12 and 8, not really that much in it there. But Chelsea taking their chances, and that's what you need to do if you're going to win the Premier League. But I think, even looking at this Everton team, although on paper it looks like they got thrashed, I think this Everton team have shown that they can keep hold of the ball, and they've kept hold of a lot of the players that maybe they thought they was going to lose in the window. And obviously Lukaku's coming as well. So for me, although this Chelsea team still favourites of the league for me, I think that one of the standout points for me is Everton's midfield, and I think they're going to do well this year. I think that they could definitely be outside shots again to challenge for the Champions League in a really, really tough Premier League, Joe. Did you get a chance to watch any of the game?
I did, and what's funny is I got to watch the last 20 minutes of roughly the last 20 to 25 minutes of this match, and I was just looking at the box score that you were reading to us. Just amazing the flurry of goals in this match, Ben, to close this thing out. Like you said, in the 67th minute, Seamus Coleman scores that own goal to make it 3-1 Chelsea, and you're thinking, wow, Chelsea, that with the solid midfield that they have, and they're so strong, that this is a done deal. But then Naismith scores that nice goal to make it 3-2, and you're like, okay, wow. We're pulling level here. Everton's going to come back, and they're going to draw this match, and it's just going to be one of those things. But then Matic scores that goal, and 5 minutes later, and then 2 minutes after that, Eto'o scores, and then a minute after that, Ramirez scores, and you're like, it was just, Ben, it was like this flurry that you just couldn't keep up with, and it was starting to be like your head would spin. You're like, who's winning at this point? Because the ball's just flying in the net. They must be playing without goaltenders. And we're looking at the two goaltenders in this match, Ben. Thibaut Courtois and Tim Howard, arguably two of the top 10 goalies in the world at this point. There's no way, if we came on the air last Monday and said, the match of the week, Everton-Chelsea, this one they're going to score 9 goals in. You'd have thought.
Oh, yeah.
No one
for me, this was...
It was unheard of.
One of the favourites to be under 2.5, surely.
Oh, no doubt. But even if it were over 2.5, 2-1, okay? I would have seen 2-1, no problem, okay? Even 3-1 Chelsea, that's fine. 6-3? Are you kidding? and the sad thing is that, Ben, from the goals that I saw, none of the goals were mistakes by the goaltenders. None of them, of the goals that I saw. And it was just an amazing match to watch, especially in that final 20 minutes. It was a sight to see, and it was one of the most enjoyable games we'll see, Ben, this entire season.
I just think, like I said, it really, really surprised me. Like I said, I don't see how teams like this. Everton and Chelsea, both teams that don't. Not teams that let in goals. They play quite compact. Both the teams that don't, and both defences are decent as well. So, yeah, a massive surprise. Sometimes you just can't predict these games, and you just, like I said, no one would have predicted that kind of score.
Right.
But like I said, it was just about one team taking more of the chances than the other, and that's simply what it came down to. And Samuel Eto'o getting a goal against the team that he was playing for last year as well. So, an interesting one. And, I think both these teams will do well this year. I really do, for their respective goals.
Let me ask you this. We all chose Chelsea to win the league, a couple weeks ago in that show. Do you think Everton makes the Champions League this year? Or do you think it's going to be something where they just have to be more successful in the Europa League?
For me, I don't know. I still don't think that Arsenal did enough in the window. I do think that they're gonna struggle. I think you're gonna see Man United come back hard. I do. I just think that they're chucking money at it. There's I think Royce came in as well at the end of the window as well, and I know it's a lot of players and it's a lot of players to gel, but you look at this Arsenal team and there's just not enough. You can't just solely rely on one player to score all your goals. I can't remember the Arsenal when Giroud's injured,
Giroud, yeah.
and that for me, Sonogo looks like he's, they picked him up out of the park. I don't understand how he is playing for they've been touted they've got a chance to win the league, and I don't think you can win this league with Sonogo as your backup striker. We just, if we're gonna sit here and talk about Man City not having enough depth, then we have to, not be biased and say this about Arsenal, because for me, they've only got one striker that score goals.
Certainly.
And if you've only got, how are you going to challenge for anything? I mean, okay, for me, they're not championship potential, but still, they're, you think Arsenal and you think, yeah, big team, hard team to beat, no one's going to want to go to the Emirates and get a result. But look up front, when Giroud's not there, I mean, for me, you can't just rely on one player. I don't know. I don't think Arsenal will have enough, but at the same time, I don't think Everton will either. I think it's going to be really close this year. Actually, I know we said actually a week before last on the show that we was going to reserve judgment on Man United to after the transfer window, whether they'd be competing for these Champions League places, and I think really it's going to be a race of who gets the least injuries really from Arsenal and Everton, and whether the Man United team can gel. But like I said, this Everton midfield really impressed me. So maybe they have got an outside shot. But to answer your question, I don't think Everton will make the Champions League now.
Getting back to your Arsenal point, Sir Bob likes to point out in the chat that they did get Welbeck today. So all things are getting better and looking up at Arsenal because they got that top quality striker in Danny Welbeck. In other news,
I know. Obviously, we'll touch upon him on the window. I do. For me, Danny Welbeck gets a lot of stick, and I think rightfully so. I don't think that he's done as much as he could have done at Man United. But then at the same time, he was played a little bit out of position. I don't think he ever really got to play like a real central role for me, enough at least. And I do think he'll get better if he gets to play games, which, like I said, I think in that Arsenal team he will. But still, if you look at what your aim is as a team, is Danny Welbeck enough? Is Giroud enough? Is Giroud just a one-off? You look at this and you compare it to the teams around them. Like Chelsea go out and buy Costa, and Man City have got Aguero, and you look at these teams, and and then Man United, Van Persie, and but you look at this Arsenal team. I mean, if even Everton have gone out and bought Lukaku. You look at this Arsenal team, and do they really have that guy? Is there a guy there that you can say, okay, yeah, he's going to score a bag. He can score me 20 goals a season? No, I don't think there is. So I still think they're going to struggle, and I don't think Danny Welbeck is good enough for Arsenal. No.
I agree. And like you said, we talk about you talk about the striker situations. Welbeck is not the answer, and I think when we compare it to Man City is certainly striker-wise is certainly much better off. Obviously, Arsenal has the Giroud injury that they're going to have to deal with, I believe, for the next 3 months, Ben, with a broken foot, from all the reports that I've seen. So they really need a replacement for Giroud, and they really don't have that replacement. So, Danny Welbeck is not the answer for them. Arsenal would have been better off throwing a box full of money at Monaco for Radamel Falcao. They would have been better off being more aggressive in the last closing hours or days of the transfer window, knowing that they are going to be without Giroud for 3 months. And you thought they would, like you said, you thought they would have done better than Danny Welbeck. And unfortunately, that's where they're going to stick with Danny Welbeck and whatever else. And they're looking at a good, solid midfield now that's going to carry them through. And Ben, we've talked about it time and again. The Arsenal midfield is certainly well above average, whether you're talking in the Premier League or just in world football. They have a great midfield, and I think they're gonna be relying on that midfield. And I think more so than Man City will rely on their midfield to score goals. Even with the idea that Arsenal brought in Alexis Sanchez, who did score a goal this weekend, which we'll talk about in a minute. He's wonderful. He's a great player. He's certainly a much better addition than Danny Welbeck, but he's not going to be enough. I think we tend to overrate Alexis Sanchez a little bit from what he did at Barcelona. When you've got somebody named Lionel Messi giving you the ball at Barcelona, Ben, you and I can score 10, 15 goals. Okay.
I think, like we said, I think you hit the nail on the head. Really, they're going to rely on their midfield. But I mean, if you look at their, because no matter who you are, no matter what club you're in, what league, what level you're playing at, you need somebody to put the ball in the back of the net for you. And you just kind of look at what Arsenal have got out and out, and the choices they have. I mean, obviously Giroud, he's injured. I mean, you can maybe move Podolski into the middle, but he hasn't played central for a long while. Maybe you push Theo Walcott into the middle, but once again, he's a bit injury prone. He's out now as well. And and then you look at Sonogo, and I, like I said before, I'm not his biggest fan, and there's just not enough there. Just like nowhere near enough, especially for a team that is apparently a Champions League team. So, I think if I was a Champions League team at the moment looking at Arsenal, you shut down the space, and I think teams are going to find them out tactically quite early this season. I really think they're going to struggle.
Also keep in mind, Wenger doesn't like Podolski. That's a fact that's fairly well known. So I don't think Wenger's going to look at Podolski and say, "Hey, he's my answer. He's the guy." I really don't.
This sorry to touch him, but he is for me a much better choice than Sonogo. Why not play Podolski in the middle? I mean, he's much better than Sonogo. Why?
Oh,
anyone that's ever played, anyone that's got an opinion on football. I mean, I don't want to sound biased. I don't want to sound that my opinion is the be all and end all. But most people would agree that if you had a choice, an out and out, if I said to you now, Podolski in the centre or you play Sonogo, which they have been, it's not a decision.
Because people will bite off their nose to spite their face, and I really think that that's what's happening now with Arsene Wenger. There was talk of Podolski moving on to possibly Juventus as recently as a couple days ago. Wenger doesn't like Podolski, and that's it. And he's going to have. I don't know what they're going to do, but like you said, Danny Welbeck's not the answer. They certainly should have done more in the transfer window here. So, actually, while we're talking about Arsenal, because we didn't finish our Sunday scores, why don't you take us into Sunday?
I was just about to go back and do that. This is just as you said it. You read my mind. Okay, yeah, we're gonna go into Sunday, and like you said, we're gonna touch upon the games. We'll give you the results first. Aston Villa beat Hull 2-1 at Villa Park. Before we go into the Arsenal game, I want to talk about the other game quickly. The Tottenham-Liverpool game. Tottenham started the season really well. They'd won both the games before this game. So White Hart Lane versus Liverpool. Once again, I think everyone predicted quite a close game. But this was, quite the contrary. I mean, Liverpool tore Tottenham to pieces. They really did. I mean, just to give you an idea on the stats, Tottenham 7 shots, 1 on target, versus Liverpool 17, 8 on target. It finished 3-0 to Liverpool. Sterling in the 8th minute, a 49th minute Steven Gerrard penalty, and Marino 60th minute strike. But we saw from this game, Balotelli, two chances he should have scored. One, he was possibly a bit too greedy on. He could have laid it across and it would have been an easy strike. One header unmarked in the middle that he put straight at the goalkeeper. This could have been easily 4 or 5 for me. A fit firing Balotelli in the right frame of mind scores at least 1 in this game for me. And this Liverpool team, we said, it's kind of similar to Arsenal. Have they got a striker, a world-class striker that can go out and do it? I firmly believe you get Balotelli in the right frame of mind and you keep him fit. And they do. I'm not saying I don't think they'll challenge this year. I think they haven't got as much as Chelsea as Man City, and Man City, should I say. But for me, they are number 3 now, and I think it's quite clear to see, in my honest opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Liverpool match. To me, I thought, like you said, even though Balotelli missed a couple of chances, I was impressed with his play. To me, Ben, time and time again, it seemed like they were trying to get into his head, and they were trying to, it was those cheap fouls, and there were quite a few of them that were happening, and it was something to see. But you saw Balotelli managed to keep his cool, managed to keep his head. I don't know if Balotelli's turning over a new leaf. I don't know if it's a Brendan Rodgers effect. But if you're going to have a Balotelli that's going to be able to keep his cool and at least provide something, do you know what I mean? He doesn't necessarily have to score all the goals, but because they've got Daniel Sturridge, they've got Raheem Sterling, they've got goal scorers. So, but if he can provide that type of quality striker who can play that hold up, position where he can hold the ball and allow people to come into the play, he's going to provide something that I thought that Luis Suarez couldn't do. I mean, you got to remember, he's this big guy. He holds defenders off. It's amazing to watch him do it. And when his head is on straight, he's one of the best in the world. It's going to be interesting to see if he can keep his head on straight, because it looks like clearly the plan for Balotelli is, hack him in the shins, kick him when he's down, do everything you can to foul him and get inside his skin so that you can force him out of his game. So we'll see what happens there. But the other thing is, as Sir Bob pointed out in the chat, Hull's been pretty active today. They did add a striker. They really did everything they could to improve their team, and it's interesting to see, despite their loss this week to Aston Villa. So I don't know if you were moving in there. So I like what you're telling me. Tell me a little bit more about Balotelli.
Just to tell you, when Balotelli did sign, I read that they put actual clauses in his contract so that he gets some major fines should he misbehave at all at the club. I think Brendan Rodgers has taken him on, on the understanding that, if you come and you play, you behave. And I'm not sure of exact numbers, but I know that this is not silly £30,000-40,000 fines, which, to me and you and to Joe Bloggs is major money. This is an amount of money that will make Balotelli, not be able to afford to set off fireworks in his house. This is like masses of money to him, so it's actually going to affect him to an extent that he won't want to do that. I think he's a bit older now, hopefully a bit wiser. I do think that Brendan Rodgers is doing a really good job at Liverpool. I think he's a good man manager, and I think he's sat Balotelli down, and I think he's just put these clauses in, kind of just as a deterrent. But I really do think that he's got a chance to do something here. He's got a chance to reignite his career with a team that's going to play in the Champions League, with a team that is moving forward, in my opinion. And I think if you're a Liverpool fan, you've got to be kind of excited about this. I mean, because Balotelli, I don't think maybe he didn't get enough time at Man City, and I do think that everyone could see it, and I'm sure along with Man City fans as well, if he could just rein it in a bit. He's a world-class player. Yeah. For me, one of the best finishers in the world, and like Joe said, he's a very creative striker, which you don't see as much of nowadays. And he will create you goals as well. So if you can get him firing on all cylinders, and if people are going to keep trying to take him out of the game, but he can keep his head, then he's going to win endless amounts of dead ball situations and force players into positions they don't like. So for me, I do think Liverpool seasons, it could really be decided by what Balotelli turns up, and I think Brendan Rodgers is taking a big gamble, but the right gamble, that the right Balotelli turns up. And I still think Liverpool finishes third for me, and I think Balotelli will have a good season. I think he will score 14, 15 goals. I
agree. I also think that Liverpool, in terms of what they've done in this transfer market, I think they've done a wonderful job. Think about it. They got rid of Luis. They got rid of a headache and picked up a headache, but they got rid of Luis Suarez for, I can't remember the transfer fee, but it was loads of money. And they bring in Balotelli at like a fifth of the price. And Balotelli, I'm not going to say he's going to score 30 goals this year for them, but even if he gives you 20 or 25, that's still going to be an incredible season for them. So I think it's an enormous move for them. I think Liverpool was definitely one of the winners in this year's transfer window, or this summer's transfer window.
I agree 100%. Yeah. We'll just quickly go on to the last game before we move on to Champions League, and it was our favourite team, Arsenal, away to Leicester. Leicester, of course, came up from the Championship last year. I got a good look at them last year. They won the Championship. They made a few acquisitions this year. It finished Leicester 1, Arsenal 1. Arsenal actually taking the lead. Alexis Sanchez opening the scoring in the 20th minute, and then Josie Aloha equalising for Leicester in the 22nd minute. Arsenal had all of the ball, 68% possession, and had, interestingly, Joe, I was talking about strikers, they had 24 shots and only 6 of them were on target, compared to Leicester 9 and 3. But you can kind of see this, Joe. This is, I don't know, there's not enough in the end third for me for Arsenal, and for all the stats and for all the shots, they weren't as threatening as they should have been against the team that they're going to be expecting to beat. This is massive point for Leicester. They would have bit your hand off for a draw at the beginning of the game, and if you're not beating teams like Leicester, then I'm sorry, but you're going to struggle to make the Champions League.
I agree. But Ben, one thing I want to point out with this Leicester side is that the first 3 matches of the season here now, they've been better than what you'd expect a promoted team to be. Okay, just looking at them here, they're 2 draws, 1 loss. Obviously, they've drawn Everton 2-2. They drew Arsenal this week, and their loss was to Chelsea. But everybody's losing to Chelsea, as we've seen in the table. This Leicester team is not a bad side, and look at the big boys they had to open up with. They had to open up with Everton, Chelsea, and Arsenal. I mean, the schedule can only get easier from here, Ben. But this Leicester side has been impressive lately.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this Leicester team was they worked so hard last season. I mean, they were the best team, the most amount of quality, and that was shown. The league didn't lie, but they didn't really know when they were beat last year, and they really worked hard, worked for each other, and it's just carried on. I tried to watch Match of the Day, and I tried to watch the Championship teams, and a lot of them don't tend to change as much. They don't seem to go out and spend a lot of money, but they've brought in some shrewd acquisitions as well. I know they did. They brought a guy on a free transfer, Cambiasso actually.
Yes.
He came on a free transfer from Inter Milan, and it's shrewd. It's shrewd what he did there. Nigel Pearson's he's a good manager. He's been there. They stuck with him, and he's built a team at Leicester, and they're doing well. They're getting the job done, and they're a hard-working team. And this is why when we did the relegation teams to go down, I didn't have Leicester to go down, or I thought out of the 3 they'd be the least likely to go down, because they just work hard. They're not afraid to grind, and I think a lot of teams come up and want to play the same football that they did, and they're not prepared to change the way they set out in games, against better teams. Which, when you go into a Premier League that's as strong as this, you have to. You can't open up and play 4-4-2 against some of these teams. Sometimes you do have to flood the midfield and work. Pardon my French, but work your ass off and really work for each other and fill the gaps when you need to. And I think that's what you saw against this Arsenal team, and they forced them into shooting from distance, and they didn't really have someone to score the goals from. No one really stepped up, and for me, this Leicester team deserved a point, and the game turned out a bit boring. But I'm sure if you asked any Leicester fan, would you take a boring game, 1-1 draw against Arsenal, they'll go out and party afterwards. So, like I said, it's Arsenal's problem, not Leicester's for me.
Right, I agree. I was just interesting. I wanted to go back and look at our relegation predictions from a couple of shows ago, and we all had Crystal Palace and Burnley going down. I had Hull. Rob has West Brom, and I don't think he had Crystal Palace. I think he had somebody else. Oh, he had QPR, and you had QPR as well. Now QPR has been they've done quite a bit in this transfer window to try and make themselves better. But it's funny that right now I think both of us are sitting on 2 of 3 correct selections, and Ben, you and I are on Crystal Palace and Burnley. They just haven't shown anything this season so far, don't you think?
I think he was always going to worry about Crystal Palace as well. I mean, I think last year, it was about the management for me. Mm-hmm. Completely pulled them out, that was the difference for me. As far as Burnley goes, I just don't think that they've done enough. If you look at the kind of players that they're trying to bring in, a lot of them are Championship players or unproven players, and you're always going to struggle when you do that. You need, you're making life hard for yourself, and I just think that's what they've done. But I think as biased as it's going to sound, Burnley was a bit of a shoe-in for everybody. And Crystal Palace, it kind of came down to the management. But, they had a good result on the weekend. And, maybe they could do something going forward, because I'm sure there is high morale there. But, when something as big as that happens and you lose your manager that took you off the bottom of the table and out and into 13th, then, it's not great for the foundations. But, like I said, I think that but you look on the other side of the coin. You look at the teams like Leicester, where they've got a solid management foundation, and they've come up and they've kept the players that got them up last year and added a few players around that, and they've decided they're going to battle really hard for that 17th spot. And I think they're going about it the right way. And whether they go down or not, for me, Leicester are going to be there fighting. Whereas I don't know whether you'd be able to say that about Crystal Palace, but especially Burnley this year.
I agree. Yeah, Palace is going to be an interesting watch, because it's going to be interesting to see if they can turn all this internal strife around to be competitive. But yeah, Burnley, I think they're just out of their league, unfortunately, for lack of a better term. And we'll have to see where they move from there. One thing I want to mention, Ben, is we're on the 7 o'clock hour here on the East Coast, and I know in about 15 minutes we'll have George Metellus joining us from BeIN Sport. I wanted to let the guys know in chat that if they have any questions they'd like us to ask George, you can post them in the chat, and we'll definitely relay them over to him. Also, if you guys want to know the call-in number for us, because we have a call-in number now for the show, is 860-615-4553 or 860-615-4LLF. But the reason I'm jumping in here real quick is because our third co-host, Rob, should be along any minute now. And before George ends up in the on the call, let's hit the MLS scores. The guys in chat have been talking a little bit of MLS, Ben. I don't know if you've seen that. They've been talking about Player of the Week and that sort of thing. So I just want to kind of breeze through the MLS scores for these guys and let them know, and we'll do a quick little table review for them. And I do want to talk about Toronto FC and Jermaine Defoe, and I think that'll probably carry us right over to the phone call. So I know I'm throwing us off the track here a little bit, but I figured they were talking about it, so might as well bring it in. So starting on Wednesday the 27th, we had the LA Galaxy beating DC United 4-1. On Friday, Sporting KC losing at home to the Houston Dynamo 3-1. That Dynamo team is always a tricky team to play. So on Saturday, the Seattle Sounders beating the Colorado Rapids 1-0. The New England Revolution really dismantling Toronto FC this weekend, Ben, 3-0. Toronto is in a load of trouble. To me, it looked like Michael Bradley didn't want to play in this match. They didn't look organized at all to me. I did get to see a little bit of this match. Gave up a quick early goal that was really just terrible defending. They fired their coach this week. They've brought in a new interim coach. I think it's Greg Vanney. They're a shambles right now. The talk of Jermaine Defoe, and actually I read somewhere Jermaine Defoe was going to be moving. I think it might have been to QPR. There was talk of him possibly moving. Apparently Toronto is who blocked that move. It wasn't Defoe. It wasn't anybody else. It was Toronto that basically said, no, we're not getting rid of you. And Sir Bob is saying that he thought Michael Bradley was the only one playing. To me, it looked like Michael Bradley for the first time took a play off or two. It looked to me like he took a couple of plays off. He didn't. I'm used to seeing Michael Bradley going full 100% for 90 minutes, and I just didn't see it. And I see that. We'll definitely talk about that in a second, Ben. So I was not impressed with this Toronto team. I don't know if they're going to be able to do enough to stay in that fifth position in the Eastern Conference, to stay in that playoff race. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to do that the way they're kind of falling apart. They should be getting back Jermaine Defoe in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how it goes from there. But they they just look lost to me. And unfortunately, this close to the end of the season with a team fighting to get into the playoffs, you can't be lost. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to them. Moving forward with the scores, the Montreal Impact 2-0 over Columbus Crew. The Chicago Fire 1-0 over FC Dallas. San Jose and Real Salt Lake playing to a 1-1 draw. The Whitecaps losing at home to the Portland Timbers 3-0. I'm assuming Troy did not make it to this match, or I would expect a trip report from him. And on Sunday, a big match that I was interested in was DC United 2-0 over the New York Red Bull. This is, again, the guys in chat were talking about Player of the Week, and Sir Bob had mentioned Bill Hamid, who is the goaltender for DC United. Man, this kid is something special. I think, Ben, he's only about 23 years old. It's going to be tough, with the United States producing the goaltenders that they do. Bill Hamid's one of the next ones for sure, and it's going to be interesting to see if MLS can hold on to him, or if he runs over to the Premier League, where most of the good U.S. goaltenders tend to run off to, and there's been plenty of history of that happening. So he really played great, and just really a little bit of a mental lapse in defense was what led to the first goal, and really the meaningful goal. But unfortunately, New York Red Bull really got to be able to turn themselves on and play a little bit better, because they're in this fight for this playoff position. The other match, LA Galaxy, which I didn't get to see. Ryan Nelson was sacked as the Toronto coach, and Greg Vanney, I believe, was the coach that replaced him. So, and the last, and I'm trying to just read the information from chat. We will be fine without Defoe next year. Gilberto really coming into his own. Wish we wouldn't have dumped Max Uridi so quickly for nothing. So Sir Bob's obviously not happy with the moves that have been made overall at Toronto FC. Last match to talk about, the LA Galaxy 3-0 over lowly Chivas. So let's hit the tables real quick, Ben. In the Eastern Conference, DC United leading the way on 46 points. Sporting KC right behind them on 42 points. Columbus Crew on 33, tied with the New England Revolution and Toronto FC. And then just outside the playoff zone is the New York Red Bull on 31 points, the Philadelphia Union on 30, Chicago Fire on 29, Houston Dynamo on 28, and 10th place, the Montreal Impact on 20 points. Moving forward into the Western Conference, we have the Seattle Sounders leading the way again on 48 points. The hard-charging LA Galaxy, winners of 4 straight now, Ben, on 46 points. Real Salt Lake on 43 points. FC Dallas on 42. And the Portland Timbers holding that final playoff spot on 34 points. Right behind them, the Vancouver Whitecaps are 1 point back, but losers of their last 2 on 33 points. The Colorado Rapids lost 6 straight, Ben, on 30 points. San Jose Earthquakes on 26, probably out of that playoff spot at this point, or playoff chase. And Chivas, losers of 5 of their last 6 on 24 points. And I'm just taking a quick peek at the chat here again. Coming up this week, we still have soccer. We still have action in Major League Soccer. One of the games that I want to highlight is going to be, it's a big one this weekend, Ben. It is the New York Red Bull versus Sporting Kansas City. Why is that game so big? Because I'm going to it. So I will be at the New York Red Bull Sporting KC match this weekend. Let's see, for our trusty fellows, we've got the Toronto FC Philadelphia Union match on Wednesday. And then playing again each other on Saturday. And the Vancouver Whitecaps will have DC United at home on Saturday as well. That's going to be one that I'm sure Troy will definitely be paying attention to. So that's going to wrap up our coverage of MLS. We've only got about a few more weeks to go, Ben, in the MLS before we're starting to talk playoff matches. So it's going to be interesting to see these teams and how they fare moving forward. So. I think probably what we want to do, Ben, from here, because what we've got left to cover is the Champions League, the Europa League. We're going to probably cover the CONCACAF Champions League scores, and if time permits, and then maybe the transfer talk. So maybe we should do a little bit of transfer talk while we're waiting for Rob to come in and for George to join us.
Sure.
So, all right. So I'm thinking right now the first one that I want to talk about is probably the oldest transfer that I have on our list, is Mehdi Benatia going from Roma to Bayern Munich. Ben, for me, this is a great move. Bayern Munich, obviously in all the different competitions that they're in, doing something like this to pick up an above-average central defender to hold the fort down, Ben. I think this is a great move. This is the kind of move that Man United should have been making, and they were nowhere near it. So your thoughts on that one first?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I think he's a real solid centre back. Definitely great cover, decent squad player. I mean, I think he gets into a lot of teams at centre back. But the name eludes me. The German centre back.
Philipp Lahm. Well, no, Lahm hasn't been playing centre back for them anymore. I'll look it up.
It's okay. I will find the name, but yeah. Like I said, it's great cover, and when you're playing in so many competitions, like we've been talking about a lot, and you're competing on all different fronts, to have the cover and the ability to be able to rotate is invaluable, really, because you're keeping all your players fresh. But at the same time, you can get, if you want to bring off and you want to change your formation and go to 3 centre backs and maybe play 5 at the back, or you want to see a game out, to have people to come on in that quality, and to also make the competition for the defensive places. It just, to me, it's a sign of a real top squad that's going for all the honours rather than just picking one particular trophy that they're going forward to try and win.
Just to answer your question, it's either, I'm not sure which one it is, if it's Badstuber, Boateng, or Dante. Those were the 3
It's Dante. That's okay. I don't know why the name eluded me. But yeah, obviously, I did think at the end of last season, Dante's not quality, but his form dropped a little bit. And for me, like I said, if you've got someone like Benatia there, then if someone like Dante is not performing, you can say, well, we're not going to play you. Your name alone does not mean you should start games. And if you can start.
And Ben, I hate to cut you off, but joining us right now on Low Limit Football is George D. Metellus from BeIN Sport. George, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Good. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. Right now, just the 2 of us are on, myself and Ben from England. My third co-host, Rob, should be joining us shortly. Like I said earlier in the show, he is the younger one of the 3 of us, so he still actually plays. So,
oh, okay, cool. He doesn't get sore after you finish playing or anything like that.
No. I'm old enough where I get sore thinking about playing nowadays.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah, I get sore playing FIFA, so it's all good. I understand. Yeah.
So again, for those of you that don't, Ben, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, nice to hear from you, George. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, like Joe was saying, he gets to play. I mean, I still do play football, but I play in golf, so it's okay. I've got a few more years left in me, I think.
Yeah, we at BMD, we get together, some of us in the production crew, we play a little 5-on-5 on a short field, and believe me, everyone wants to start out in goal. So it's one of those deals where none of us are really in shape unless you're like one of the ex-players.
Yeah, it's amazing how some of them go. I've seen the video of Christian Vieri playing in some of these the charity match last year. He's not an old man. He still can get up and down the field a little bit.
Oh yeah, no doubt. About a couple of years ago, we played. There's a place in Miami down here, Soccer Rooftop, which is a 5-on-5 short field place, and one of the owner is the son of Teófilo Cubillas, Nene Cubillas, and so one game, Nene Cubillas came out and played with us, and he's in his 60s, and he hasn't lost anything. I mean, the man still was running up and down the left side of the field. He scored a goal on me. I was playing in goal, which anybody can score at that point. But anyway, he was running down the left side, and with the outside of his right boot, he managed to sneak it in by me near post. And I was like, man, this old guy, he still got it. So it was incredible. 60 years old, and he was like in better shape than all of us. And we're like half his age. So when you're a legend and you have that gift, it never goes away. It's just that maybe you can't run full field for 90 minutes. It's incredible.
Yeah, I used to have a coach as coming up. I think it was like U12s. We used to do the travel team, and he had to be in his 60s. His sons played, and they were a little older than me. But again, like you said, he was in his 60s, and the guy was the best player on the field. It didn't matter. When you've got it, you've got it, and you may lose a step, but you never lose it. Amazingly, so.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's amazing. I think it's really soccer. Football is really like the only sport like that. You can't be 7 years old or 60 years old playing with people half your age in American football or even baseball for that matter, or any of the other kind of big sports. But soccer, football, real football, it always stands up. There's always that something about it that you play it till the end of time.
Yeah, and it's always amazing when you can still, even that age, still create that little bit of magic that comes off your foot that you used to do it more frequently when you were a kid, but even at that older age, there's always that one moment of brilliance that comes out every now and again. So it's what makes the sport so great. So. Oh
yeah, no doubt, best sport in the world, no doubt.
I wanted to start out. I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I actually think that I must admit I've never played out on pitch. I've never been should we say I was never really slow, but I was never really quick enough on the field. I didn't have any skills per se, and then I kind of got chucked in goal when I was maybe 11 or 12, and I mean I'm 30 next month actually, but I found that as I got older I got better in goal, and I think you find that of a lot of keepers. I think it's just you started there because that's the only place you could play, and then you get better, and it's thankless work, but I love it. I love playing in goal, but like I said, I don't have any fans. So.
Well, look at.
It's funny because in the States, the kids that play soccer and they always want to touch the ball with their hands, that's the ones they stick in goal. So the kids, they just don't get it in terms of the feet. They say, "Oh, you want to pick it up with your hands? Go play in goal, and you can touch it all you want." So you always kind of, the game always naturally finds your position in that respect. So it's amazing.
No, it's true. So I want to start out, George, by asking you about basically in your career. Obviously, you're one of the more popular talking heads on BeIN Sport. How did you get your start at BeIN Sport? What led you to them, and take us through like the steps moving from college, forward into being where you are now.
Well, my journey, if you will, is a little bit different because when I finished, I was in the military in between 95 and 90. I was in the Air Force from 95 to 99. And when I got out of the Air Force, I went back to college, and it was at college at the University of Miami where I kind of discovered, I've always played soccer, I always played football, but I really didn't know too much about the club scene because in the 80s and 90s in America, it wasn't on television like that. And my parents weren't big football fans, so they really didn't steer us in terms of the club scene. So when the internet exploded in the early part of the millennium, that's when I really got into the club scene, following the club teams and really learning about the history of the team. But I went to college at University of Miami. In my junior year, I majored in international studies. In my junior year, another kid, a friend of mine who's a Colombian, he went to FIU, and another friend of mine who's Argentine, we met up. We kind of, circumstances happened. We're like, hey, what would be cool if we could do a soccer show on the radio at UM. So we were like, okay, and you're a student at UM, you don't have to, they make you fill out an application, but you really don't have to, it's not like a job interview. It's like, okay, we stick you on the air late at night. If you're good enough, eventually you get your own show and things like that. So my broadcasting career kind of started like that. Mm-hmm. And I graduated in 2004, and I didn't get a job in any kind of football broadcasting for a long time. I was, working as a bartender. I had to make ends meet. So I was working at a bartender. I was working at a bank, and in between those times, I had done an internship at Gold TV in college, but it didn't lead to a job. So you got to pay your bills. You have to live your life and do what you have to do. So I was working at the bank. I was working as a bartender. I did hotel front desk for a while. And me and my colleague, Juan Arango, we kept doing a podcast. So I kept my foot in the game and keeping aware of what was going on. And he got a job at Gold TV. And about 2 years later, I was working at the front desk of a hotel. We're still doing our podcast. I was doing a little bit of writing on the side. And he says, yo, someone is leaving Gold TV. Do you want to work there? I was like, hell yeah. Because trust me, when you work at the front desk of a hotel, you will take any job that's, Yeah, I mean, well, not any job, because I mean, you're not going to go from hotel front desk to picking up garbage. But if you have a chance to do broadcasting or something like that, oh man, it's relief. Because working at the front desk of a hotel can be hell. I mean, it's crazy. So I was like, sure. So I went. I had something I was working. I had in between. I also had a part-time job at the local radio sports station down here, WQAM. But that only lasted about a year because radio doesn't pay that well. It doesn't pay, especially if you're new and behind the scenes, you're doing board off and things like that. So I had to get a real job as well. But I had kept a little bit of the voicing and the cuts that I had done. So I sent it to Gold TV. They called me back and said, hey, would you come in for an audition and an interview? I said, sure. I went in. They interviewed me, and then they stuck me on a game. I'll never forget. It was Barcelona and Mallorca back in 2010. It was a couple months after the South Africa World Cup. And I went in there. I called the game, the little snippet that they gave me. And they said, okay, cool. Come back and you start freelance. That was November 2010. And then I was working there freelance on the weekend, still doing my regular job during the week. And a guy quit. And in April of the following year, 2011, they said, George, you want to work full-time? I was like, yeah, hell yeah. So they gave me a job full-time at Gold TV, and things have just progressed ever since. So I wasn't that lucky in terms of high school. I knew what I wanted to do. College, I knew going straight from college to doing sports broadcasting. I had to kind of bum around, if you will, work at other jobs and kind of figure out what I wanted to do and kind of appreciate it and make ends meet until this career popped off. And I just kind of got lucky. I had a good friend of mine working at Gold TV. He told me they knew me a little bit from when I had the internship in college. In April 2011, I went from freelance on the weekend to full-time. And then about February of this year, I'm working at Gold TV. And a lot of Gold TV people work at BeIN. They had an opening. They called me up. I kept in touch with them because we played fantasy football together, a lot of them. So we were like, okay, George, come through. They sent me a text out of blue saying, hey, George, you want to work at BeIN? We have this coming up. I said, sure. And I went in there. They gave me an audition, talked to some people, and next thing you know, they hired me. And I was like, wow. So I've been really fortunate. It's kind of an unorthodox path to get to where I've been. I've been military right after a couple years out of high school. I had to come back, go to college, and then kind of work in the real world, quote unquote, real world for a couple of years before I kind of settled in my career. So I'm kind of a late bloomer to this thing.
Yeah. With all the stars that you have to work with at BeIN, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite talking head to work with there?
I would have to say Kay. Kay is my favorite. Kay Murray, yeah. She's great. First of all, she knows as much as anybody. I mean, when it comes to knowledge, she's at the top. She's up there. She has a lot of experience just with the knowledge, and then also because of her time at Real Madrid TV, and then she was also a presenter for a couple of Ballon d'Or ceremonies as well. Okay. So she's seen so much. She has so much knowledge, and then she's just genuinely like a nice person to work with. Where everybody's real, me, Ian, Kay, we're relaxed. We're all kind of jokesters. We don't take ourselves too seriously, so we can kind of make fun at each other and we laugh it off. Yeah, but I mean, you guys don't know, but in between takes, and we're cracking on each other almost all the time. It's fun. So I would say Kay and Ian, those are like one A and one B.
Now, knowing that you're a Barcelona fan, do you ever get into it with her, especially around the time of El Clasico?
A little bit. Nothing major yet. A little bit. Nothing. It's always been good fun. It's always good fun. I think we kind of done it where we take subtle during the year. It's more subtle shots at Barca or Real Madrid, but it's always been good fun. But we haven't. The trash talking hasn't quite escalated yet. So maybe this upcoming Clásico, I would have been there a little bit longer. Because I actually started, I think, a week before at BeIN, maybe a week before the last Clásico of last season. So I really wasn't too well acclimated, and I was still getting to learn the atmosphere of the people. So maybe this next Clásico coming up in the La Liga season, that might be the one where, we ratchet up the heat a little bit with the trash talking. But it's been civil for the most part.
As I say, if you guys are really starting to beat up on each other, there should be like an outtakes TV show. That's what they should do, is leave the cameras rolling and every once in a while just cut back to you guys in terms of a commercial break and just see what's going on and make a few people laugh. So,
well, that has been suggested. We've had meetings and talked about at kind of a lighter moment on the extra whatever, showing kind of the the outtakes, things like that when we mess up or whatever situations when it make faces behind the camera, things like that. So that would be cool. That would be a lot of fun. I think people would get a good insight into the inner workings of BeIN Sports for sure.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: is Wow Time coming back? I thought that was a great show and some of the best highlights you're going to see on TV. And you guys, you and Ian brought a ton of energy to that show. Is that show coming back? Because I haven't seen it on the programming yet.
As far as I know, it will not be back. As far as I know,
that's too bad.
Unfortunately, we like doing it. Me and Ian ended up doing that show. Even when Metellus came on, he was great. It was great doing it with Metellus, but me and Ian really enjoyed doing it. But as far as I know, unless something changes, I don't think it'll be back on the air, unfortunately.
That's too bad. That's way too bad. So, Ben, I know you have a question for George.
Hey, George. Now you're working at BeIN Sports. Could you just give us an idea of like what your day entails? Like, walking into the office in the morning, like right the way through to the end of your day.
Okay. Well, it depends on the day. Let's take for example today. Today, Monday, I did the news bulletin, which I think they aired. Well, today it was weird because of the volleyball, but on a normal day, they would air 12, 1, 2 at the top of each hour from 12 to 5. So what I would do today, for example, I go in at 9 in the morning, try to get in at 9 in the morning, and I would sit with whoever is the producer that's coordinating the show, and they give me a rundown of the topics that are going to be on the bulletin. And then I go on the internet, research, try to get multiple sources, research to confirm the stories and whatever. And then I write out, if it's 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, then I write my information into the scripts and into our computer system, our program actually. And I write the scripts in there, and I try to, make sure I do that. I concentrate, focus for about 2.5 hours. So if I have to record at 11:30, I try to be done writing my scripts at let's say 11 o'clock. Then, after I'm finished writing my scripts, make sure I proofread them, make sure everything is full, all the information is correct, and all of that stuff. I go downstairs. Well, the office of BeIN is upstairs, and downstairs, right next to the studio, is the makeup room. And then I have to cover all the pimples and the blackheads that I got from my 38 years on Earth, because no one's skin is ever that smooth on TV. I'm just going to tell you right now. So go into the makeup chair, and after I go in the dressing room and put on my suit and tie, get dressed, look all spliffy, and then I go sit in the makeup chair. Luckily, my skin isn't that bad, so it doesn't take me 30 minutes in the chair. I'm only in there for about 5 minutes. And the makeup lady, who's a sweetheart, there's a team of like 3 or 4, and all of them are really sweet ladies. They're fun to talk to and everything. And they make me up, everything except the lipstick and the eye blush, whatever the girls use on their eyes, I don't know. And I go in front of the camera, I get mic'd up. The audio guys mic me up. They run they put the little earpiece, the IFB in my ear, run the cord up my back, and then the microphone on my suit. They make sure my tie is straight, although I can never get my tie to be straight on the bulletin, but that's a different issue. And I go on, and we do maybe a quick practice run on the screen, and I go through my scripts and news bulletins, and then they say, cue, lights come on, and then I do my thing. I read the scripts, try to put some emotion into it, and knock them out. And that's usually what it is for the bulletin on Mondays, on a Monday. On the weekends, it's a little different because I'm doing the extra with Tay. So I would come in, if we go on live at 7. This weekend we've gone live at 7. So I get in I got in on Saturday and Sunday at 1. Get in at 1, talk to my producer. He gives me the rundown. I talk to Kay. Me and Kay, we kind of discuss the tosses and which ones we're going to do, which highlights and which graphics we're going to do, and what we want to say at the top of the show, bottom of the show. And then I go do my research. So, I get my facts right and get the players right, teams, stats and everything. Ian comes in usually around the same time, and, we crack jokes for a few minutes, and then Ian goes, does the games, and then does his BeIN optics, which is really cool. He's great at that. And then 6 o'clock, we're good to go. We go downstairs. We do the same thing. Makeup, get dressed. We criticize each other's clothing, criticize how we look in each other's with the clothes, and then we move on and we record the show. And we try to have fun. So basically, it's people. You guys might just see, us on the air for an hour, a few minutes, but there's about 4 or 5 hours of preparation that we do before we even get into the makeup chair to get the show together. And the production people, they really work hard. They have to cut videos, find the videos, and make sure the graphics are okay. And they have to worry about making sure that they don't get video that they can't use and a lot of stuff. So it's really a labor of love. We wouldn't do it if we didn't love football. We didn't love working with each other. My producer, one of the producers of the show, the extra's name is Bruno. We call him Two Saints. And I'm telling you, we'll walk through a wall for that guy. He's great. So it really is, when you like the people you work with, it makes it easier. Kay is really great to work with. She gives me advice. We swap information about certain things. Ian is fun too. Ian is great at finding things and helping us out. So that's basically what it comes down to. We go on at 6. We're in the studio 12 noon, 1 o'clock, getting ready to make sure the shows come out good.
Yep. It sounds like a lot goes on behind the scenes. Another question for you, George.
Sure.
For any up-and-coming people wanting to, go into the same line of work, maybe going to presenting or other forms of media in sports. I know our co-presenter Rob is hoping to go into a similar line of work. What kind of advice would you give for someone that wanted to get into it? And something along the lines, like what would you tell somebody like
that? First thing I would tell them, if you're going to do football, soccer, make sure you have a good command of a couple of other languages. You might not have to speak the other languages, but make sure you have a good command of a couple of other languages. I'm lucky. I'm from Miami, so I grew up down here. So Miami, tons of Hispanic people, tons of Latinos, so that makes it easy. I grew up learning Spanish. I studied Spanish in school. My parents studied Spanish. So I'm able to communicate, read Spanish pretty well. And also because of my background as Haitian, my French is decent. So I can understand French and I can kind of say names in French properly and everything like that. I was able to studied Arabic when I was in the Air Force. So I can't speak it too well now, but that knowledge helps me to say certain names and things like that. So if you really want to get into the football broadcasting, it helps to have good command of a couple of other languages. It doesn't have to be French and Spanish like me. It could be Italian and German or Arabic and Portuguese or something like that. But, to have a good command of a couple of other languages really helps. And then I would say, too, read up on all the leagues that you can. Not just, you might have your favorite in Europe, but a lot of players that go to Europe play in the Americas, South America, Central America, North America. So if you're familiar with those leagues and what's going on, that'll help you a whole lot. And then the third thing is just make yourself available. If you get a chance to go to these games and you can get a credential, go for it. Do that. Connect with people, get into the writing on websites, get into on the social media and trying to make a presence there on social media. That's always big. And make sure that you can find a way to get into, if you want to do TV, maybe keep going to places where you might come across like games, talk to some people in television, work on your public speaking, and make sure that part is good, because a lot of times, one thing I learned when I took public speaking, is to try not to say things like, as you transition, it's this is how it goes, or things like that. That usually helps. So that's something that is important. Public speaking, the languages, and just going out there and networking with people and communicating with people. That's really important. And then obviously keeping up with the social media and things like that. But because the knowledge, you're going to get the knowledge just because you love the game and you read, there's billions of websites. But to have a good opinion, to have a good command of the languages, and to be able to express it in a certain way that people don't struggle to understand you, is going to be that little bit of difference. So I would have been able to work at Gold TV and in BeIN Sports if I couldn't explain myself in Spanish. That's just honest truth. And down here in Miami, if you want to work at a soccer network and it's bilingual, you have to be able to have good command of both languages. Kay worked in Spain for a long time, so her Spanish is very good. And Ian is learning, but as me and Kay are the anchors, we really have to have that extra knowledge. So I would tell anyone, command of a couple of foreign languages, networking, making sure you have your knowledge of the Americas, football outside of Europe, as well, and just go to games. If you can get a press credential to go to games and talk to some people, that will help as well. So those are big keys, because I wouldn't have been able to work at BeIN if I didn't know people. That's just honest. I got recommended 2 times. I go once at Gold TV and once at BeIN because I knew people. So that helps a whole lot.
Okay, thank you for that.
No problem.
Our other co-host, Rob, who's actually wrote a few football articles himself, I know he's got a big interest in journalism and sports journalism. I believe he's in the building now, and he's got a few questions for you. Sorry, so I'll let him ask away for you.
Sure, sounds good.
Hi, George. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. I just have one question. I've heard that you are an Inter fan, and how did it feel to win the treble back in 2010?
Woo! Man, that was beautiful. It was beautiful to win that treble. It was tough against Bayern in that final, but it was great. It was great. And it was especially kind of gratifying for me because I'm a big Samuel Eto'o fan. And I didn't like how Barcelona kind of treated him or how he left the Camp Nou. So for him to go from one treble-winning team and then the next year win a treble at Inter, that was really good. That was really cool. And then Diego Milito was such a big part of that team. And Jose Mourinho, to this day, of all the relationships of owners that he talks about, we know it was miserable at Real Madrid. We know that he and Florentino Perez didn't get along too well. And then obviously he left Roman Abramovich the first time because their relationship soured. But he's never spoken a bad word about Massimo Moratti. He has great affection for Massimo Moratti. So for him to have that kind of feeling toward a club, where we know he's not afraid to speak his mind against anyone or any club, really shows how special that year was. So it was great to win that treble. And that was one, Eto'o going over there was one of the reasons that kind of strengthened my Inter fandom. The main reason I became an Inter fan was because about 5 years earlier, the first football jersey that someone bought for me was an Inter jersey. And I like blue is my favorite color, so I was like, oh, man, this is cool. And then I just learned about the history of the club and everything, and it just kind of grew from there. So 2010 treble was special. It was real special.
All right, George, my next question to you at least is, obviously you told us how you became an Inter fan. I know that you're a big a Barcelona fan, like we had mentioned earlier, and also you follow Arsenal. How did these allegiances happen? I mean, for me, my dad is a big Juventus fan, so that's how I became a Juventus fan as a kid, and I've always just carried it through to the point now where my kids have Juventus jerseys. So what influenced your team choices through the years?
Well, it's kind of because of particular players. Well, not kind of. Yeah, that helps. For example, I like Barcelona first. I first liked Barcelona. I liked the way they played, but it was Rivaldo and Kluivert that got me interested in Barcelona. I really like Rivaldo. back then. And he was the one that I was still on the fence. I didn't know, I was like picking a team, like I said, in 99, 2000. I was just starting after getting out of the Air Force. I was just starting to get into, the club game and how everything works in the European club scene. So I was trying to pick a team in. Rivaldo was a great player. I liked Patrick Kluivert. And so I said, man, these guys are good. And then the colors of Barcelona, the Blaugrana, the red and blue, those are the same colors as the Haitian flag. And so, my heritage is Haitian. And so I was like, man, that's cool. The color scheme is very similar to the Haitian flag. And they have that kind of that sense of rebellion because, Catalonia, deep down, a lot of the Catalans kind of want to be their own nation and they want to have that independence. So that whole spirit of it and those different reasons was the reason that I became a Barca fan. As for Arsenal, it started with Thierry Henry, and I like Henry. He's a great player. I like the way Arsenal played. It was an attacking style. They had skill all over the pitch, even the defenders with Tony Adams and Ray Parlin. Those guys were skillful. Henry, Robert Pires, Patrick Vieira. I mean, Dennis Bergkamp is like one of the most underrated goal scorers in history. Those guys, man, they were so fun to watch. And then they went on the Invincibles run, and it was like, wow, how can you not like them dudes? And like a colleague of mine says, George, man, you like all the kind of second team in those three leagues because Barcelona is kind of the second team, quote unquote, second team behind Real Madrid. Inter is second behind Milan, even in the city. Right. And if you're talking about Champions League trophies, it's the same thing. And then Arsenal, obviously, behind Manchester United. So they're like, man, George, you kind of like all those second teams. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I consider myself like Neo, and everybody else is still stuck in the Matrix. So maybe that's what it is. But I think that's the players from those clubs in the early part of the millennium kind of got me onto the clubs. And then you read the history, you look at the colors and the shirts, and you're like, man, this is for me. But that's usually how it starts. That's how it started for me.
Just while we've got you speaking about Arsenal, George, I've got a couple of questions about Arsenal for you, if you could give me your opinion. Obviously, the transfer window's just closed, and Arsenal have signed Danny Welbeck. It's kind of a two-part question, really. Firstly, what do you think of Danny Welbeck in general? And do you think Arsenal have enough strikers?
Danny Welbeck is not the solution for Arsenal in terms of that lethal number 9 that's going to get them 20 to 25 Premier League goals. No. I think between Alexis Sanchez and Olivier Giroud, they should be fine in terms of goal scoring. Lucas Podolski is decent off the bench. I would have, they could have used a real assassin. They still could use a real assassin. But to me, the thing with Arsenal has always been, at least probably since Patrick Vieira left, they never really had a good kind of holding, hard, marking central mid. That's always been like missing. They got plenty of wingers and attacking players and speed, but they just don't have that kind of attacking, that hard man in the middle that could, fire up the team, give them some energy, get in someone's face, really give them the edge. That to me is what really is missing from Arsenal. I think Alexis Sanchez and Olivier Giroud could do enough to pick up the scoring slack that a good center forward would provide. So I'm not too. But he came from Manchester. Welbeck's from Manchester United, man. I can't think of the only Manchester United player that I would welcome on Arsenal just because of the rivalry. Ugh, man, I don't even know if I can think of one right now. The way they've been playing, I don't know, man. I still hate Robin Van Persie for leaving. So, I don't know. Maybe Welbeck. Maybe the system will fit him and he'll do well. But I'm not too excited about that move. But we'll see what happens. If he wants to come to Arsenal, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and kind of give him some time to prove himself. But they still haven't addressed, which to me is their biggest problem, which is holding midfielder. And we'll see what happens after that. They had enough money to pay Falcao to get on loan. So I don't know why they didn't do that. but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm not too hot. I don't think it's a great move by Denny for Arsenal to get Danny Welbeck in. I don't know if they need a striker as much as they need a holding midfield.
Okay, just kind of leads me on to the next question, George.
Okay.
How do you rate Arsenal's chances this season? What's your expectation? How do you feel they'll do going forward?
Man, I was feeling pretty good, and then they went to Leicester and they drew 1-1, and then I was like, this is going to be a lot tougher than I thought. I think Chelsea just looks so good, man. It looks so good to start. So Arsenal, to me, I think I want them to win the Premier League. Well, I want them to win the Champions League also. But I think that realistically, second or third place is going to be where they're at. On Liverpool, I know they got Balotelli and they got deeper. They had a good number of signings. But I don't know. I think losing Suarez is just too much, although Raheem Sterling is starting off very well. But I think it's the Premier League is going to be Chelsea and Manchester City, and I think Arsenal is going to finish third. I would hope to see Arsenal finish higher, get first place. But I think just Chelsea and Manchester City, they're just so deep. They have so many. I mean, they're so deep at every position. There are very few holes in those two squads. So I think those are the two top teams. But I'd like to see Arsenal win it, but I think Arsenal is gonna. I think they're gonna get third place. Like I said, I hope they win it, but I think they're gonna get third. I think Chelsea. I mean, look at Chelsea. Diego Costa is scoring goals as if he's been playing the Premiership for 5 years already. I mean, he looks like a Brazilian Spanish international of Alan Shearer the way he's scoring goals. It's ridiculous. So I don't know what's going on, but I think Chelsea and Manchester City are a step above Arsenal. But when they play head-to-head, man, I'm hoping the Gunners kick their ass.
Okay. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
I believe Rob's got a question for you waiting in the wing.
Okay,
Hi,
cool.
George. Hi, George. Being an expert of Italian football, and after seeing Napoli get knocked out of the Champions League playoffs a week ago, meaning that only 2 Italian clubs are in the Champions League, what do you think has happened to Italian clubs in European competition where around 10, 20 years ago, they dominated European football with Milan, Juventus, and Inter, just like Spanish and German clubs have been doing for the last 4 years or so? And what do you think needs to change in Italy to go back to that success for those clubs in European competitions?
Woo! Well, man, this is something, man, I would like to tap Matteo Bonetti. That's my boy when it comes to Serie A. I think to me it's really kind of a financial thing. I think they haven't adjusted to the times in terms of the economics of the game. A lot of the Serie A, the way it's structured, doesn't really the economics isn't quite modernized yet, so I think that has hindered their ability to buy players. But I think another thing that has hurt the Serie A is the fact that you don't hear of any Italian teams having this great youth academy. You hear Barca and La Masia, even Real Madrid Castilla, in England, Manchester United and Everton, and Arsenal. They're bringing up players from their youth squad. It seems like pretty regularly now. I mean, I know if I remember correctly, Theo Walcott and Axel Chamberlain are Arsenal youth products. In Germany, Bayern the same way. Dortmund, their renaissance was partly because of some financial help that they got as well. But they put all that money into their youth system. Mario Götze is a product of that youth system. I believe Ilkay Gundogan the same, Nuri Sahin. So they have invested in their youth system. I think the only player that I can think of off the top of my head in one of the big 4 clubs in Italy, Juve, Milan, Inter, and Roma, that's from the youth system that I can think of off the top of my head is, I believe it's Mateo Kovacic of Inter, I think. I got to double check that. But you don't really hear about any of the big Italian clubs with these outstanding youth academies that you hear in Germany or in England or in Spain. Even France with Monaco. Monaco, for a while, they were developing some great players, excellent players. So I think that's been an issue. The economics in Italy, plus the fact that they really haven't spent on building their youth academies to the level that you see in La Liga or in the Premiership or in the Bundesliga. So that's been an issue, because if you're strapped for money, there's nothing cheaper than bringing in a talent from your youth academy. Barcelona knows that. Barcelona knows that very well, because they didn't spend a dime on the transfer of Messi, So, or Iniesta, or Xavi, or Sergio Busquets. We all know the history. Even Ajax, the great Dutch club, they've developed players amazingly. Feyenoord, same thing. So once the Italian clubs, their economic situation gets better, and they start to, that light bulb goes on, and they start to realize, hey, we need to develop the players through the youth systems, then I think they'll be back to being a major force in the Champions League. But also, it's affected the national team too, because look, I believe this last World Cup, they didn't get out of the group stage, and I think in 2010 they didn't get out of the group stage either. So that's affected the national team as well. The fact that they're not really developing consistently these young players through their club team. So I think that has something to do with it. The economics, and then kind of a lost focus on the youth academy. We all know Italy, 4-time world champion. That's a great football playing nation. But how is it that a 4-time world champion can get out of the group stage of the last World Cups? Something going on there. So I think that's kind of the heart of the issue.
No, George, I agree with you. I think part of it is the lack of development in Italy. I also, to me, to a little bit of an extent, is the head coaching position in Italy. It's always, and as an Italian American, I pay a little more attention to this one than most of the general public does. But to me, the Italian head coach has always been a drama queen position. And I'm hoping that Antonio Conte does enough with the national side to kind of change the culture that exists in Italian football these days and bring them back to where they were, because like you said, they have gotten knocked out of the group stages in 2010 and obviously this year, but this is also a team that made it to the final of the Euros and was beaten by Spain, and in 2006 won the World Cup. So they're not that far off from where they need to be. I think you're right. I think there needs to be a cultural change with the youth development, and I also think there needs to be a cultural change at head coach, which I think they've done. So that's just...
Yeah. Look, I like Conte. Conte is he's kind of revolutionized club football, the Serie A and club football and Italian football with that 3-man back line. I mean, look what he did last year with Juventus. Juventus destroyed everybody.
Yeah.
They 100 over, but I can't remember this. I know they had like 100 points. I believe it's 102 off the top of my head. I don't remember. But I mean,
it was 104.
It was just like, it was ridiculous how they just dominated. And they really didn't spend huge dollars on that team. They basically had Pirlo, who still was getting it done. I know Milan fans were kicking themselves going, why did the club let go of Pirlo? And then you have Vidal and Pogba. They were able to, they got Tevez for cheap, I believe free. Or either Tevez was very cheap and Llorente was free. I can't remember how that worked out, but and they built and Conte put 3 in the back and said, "Hey, fellas, Pirlo's going to be my general. He's going to be the guy that directs the attack from his deep lying midfield position, and then Pogba and Vidal will be his lieutenants, and Tevez and Llorente will score, and everything will be good." And they did, and they dominated. So it's kind of been an evolution a little bit, It used to be the Catenaccio, and then, then you have those great Milan teams with Van Basten and Ruud Gullit and those guys that, they're just too talented to play defensively. I'm sorry. Yeah. And they're going to go out and attack, and then kind of changed in the 2000s. It changed a little bit to a more wide open, and now with 3 in the back for Juventus under Conte, it's gotten even more amazing. So hopefully with the national team, he'll do the same thing. And, just find the right pieces all over the country to get them back to where it is, where they should be. But there's no way Italy, with the reputation and the players they have, there's no way they should be out of the group stage in the last 2 World Cups. The U.S. has advanced farther than Italy. No offense to the U.S., but I'm sorry, they're not Italy in terms of their history. So it's, yeah, and then, they lost their Champions League place to Germany. That's strange.
Yeah.
So there has to be a change there. Hopefully with Conte, the drama will not continue. But there was some drama in him leaving. So that's not in him leaving Juventus. So you're like, man, what is going on here? You know, is this Commedia dell'arte? What's going on here? So we'll see. But I know I have my friend Juan Arando, who's a great soccer writer, great pundit. He loves Serie A, and he's been a little frustrated with it because it's like, man, I remember when I was a kid, man. I mean, you talk about great players. I mean, all the great players. Michel Platini and Zidane was at Juventus. I mean, you talk about that team in the Milan team with Kaká and Maldini and Nesta. And you look at the lineups and you go, my God, that's an all-star team. Yeah. You know, what happened? So it's unbelievable. But I think it's a down period, but eventually they'll figure it out. I can't see Italy having 3 Champions League spots for the next 5 years. I mean, it'll work itself out somehow. It has to. Yeah. It has to.
Hopefully it does. I'm going to have to beg you for all the Italian stuff. If you'd put the good word in for Matteo Bonetti to maybe he'll join us one of these days.
Oh yeah, man, he could break it down. He is the one that he can break it down.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you back to the United States here with these last couple of questions. Then I know you wanted to get to the University of Miami football game, I think, tonight, right? I think that was the game.
Yeah, my boys. Yeah, my squad is getting ready to open the season against Louisville, so I'm excited.
The U, that's right. So,
yeah.
Obviously, we've got an expansion team for MLS going into Miami, and I'm going to ask you about that one in a second. I'm going to actually close with that question as the last question. But
okay, sure.
Before I hit them, there's been a bit of a shakeup. We do cover a little bit of MLS, and like you'd said, you're better off covering lots of different leagues because all these players move from league to league. So we've incorporated the MLS into our coverage here. And Toronto over the past week has been an absolute mess. You know, the potential leaving of Jermaine Defoe, which didn't happen. They fired their head coach this week. What's your take on Toronto? I mean, is it too dysfunctional for them to stay in the playoff race, or is this something that you know they can get this turned around and stick with it for the end of the season?
Well, you know, Toronto, for as long as it's been in MLS. They've always had a problem. They never could quite figure it out. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember for a while they had Aaron Winter as coach, and that just turned out to be a disaster. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the deal is. They made headlines with acquiring Michael Bradley and then obviously Jermaine Defoe. Mm-hmm. And they're in the playoff hunt. But I don't know if it's some kind of internal culture or franchise thing. I don't know. I wish I could tell you that. Where it seems like maybe they're so accustomed to being mediocre and losing since they joined the MLS that they just, when they get a little bit of success, they're just waiting for the bottom to fall out instead of saying, hey man, let's see what we can do to continue this. It's an intriguing situation in Toronto, and Toronto really could be Canada's team, and that would be huge because Canada's a massive market. I know they have Montreal and Vancouver, but Toronto really is kind of if you want to say, kind of the glamour city of Canada, and they could really run it. They could really run it and make it the team that the Canadian professional football fans would like, but just through mismanagement or whatever, it just doesn't seem to work. I don't know what's going on with Toronto. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they'll get it together, but it is strange. It is strange. I heard that they turned down a big money offer to sell Jermaine Defoe. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know if he's unhappy there or not, but I think it would be in their best interest to keep him. You brought him in, so you might as well keep him. And maybe he needs another season or two to really for that team to reach their potential. But it's always been a real kind of it's fascinating what is going on with Toronto FC. They haven't seemed to be able to get it together.
So, I do have one more. Question. That question was actually from our chat. When we run the show, we have an interactive live chat, and the last 2 questions, that one and this last one, are both from the chat. Obviously, sticking with MLS, Miami has added the franchise with oh my goodness, It just escaped me
With
now.
Orlando?
No, not the Orlando
Yeah.
side. The although we could always talk about the Orlando side, but the David
Yeah,
Beckham
the Miami,
side,
Orlando, New York City, New York.
the
The
NYCFC.
recent, you talking about the recent MLS team?
Yeah, the new addition in Miami, because I know that David Beckham has had some trouble getting a stadium location set up. But what do you see happening with the Miami squad? I'd like your take on overall Miami as a city. Will they be able to support them? That's my first question. My other question is, where do they stand right now on the location for the arena for them?
Well, to answer the first question in terms of Miami being a soccer town, it could work. It could definitely work. The problem or the issue that the new management has to address, that the Miami Fusion did not address, is the marketing and who they market to. This is something that we've been talking about, myself, my colleague Juan Arango, and a couple of people I know. We've been talking about this for a long time. Miami has a problem in that the people that market football games here in the county, in Dade County and in South Florida, they never reach out to the lower income Latino and lower income Black African American community. They never do. They keep all their advertising, all their billboards, all their communication in the high-end, richer neighborhoods in Miami. And if you follow football, you know that football is a game of the people, all kinds of people, not just, not rich people, but all rich people, middle class, and poor people. So if you're going to build a fan base, you have to touch all of those. And the people that market the game down here, when we have friendlies down here and all this stuff, they never make an effort to make it grassroots. They don't go to the Latino radio station and advertise the game. They don't go to, for example, I'm Haitian. You don't hear them advertising or making an effort to touch the Haitian community down here, or the Caribbean, Jamaican, Trinidadian, Barbados community down here. They go forward. They keep it in the rich neighborhoods, the Coral Gables, the North Bay Village, Miami Beach, downtown. You're not going to get a stadium full of people if you're going to keep it in those neighborhoods. You really have to make sure that you touch every neighborhood, lower middle income neighborhoods, in the Hispanic, in the Latino community, and in the the Caribbean community, the African American community as well. So that's the first thing. If the new team does that, they can fill up a 20,000 stadium, and they can sustain a team with a strong fan base for a long time if they do that. The second issue in terms of the stadium, David Beckham wanted it downtown, and Miami politics dictate that you have to grease some palms in order to make that happen. And I don't think he was wanting to do that. He wanted to build on the Port of Miami. Port of Miami has a lot of, with all the cruise liners and the shipping companies there, they didn't want to give up that land. So he had a plan B. There's a plan B he had a few miles up from the American Airlines Arena. There's a little inlet that they wanted to use, but I don't think it was big enough. And then also some environmental agency came and showed proof that there was life there. There's a little reef there. So that was a kind of a quick little blurb that kind of ended that aspect of it, or that course of trying to get a stadium. And so now there hasn't been much in terms of a new location, a new choice of a location for David Beckham. So I think personally they need to find a way to put the stadium, about 20,000 capacity, next to where the Miami Dolphins play. I call it Joe Robbie Stadium, but it's called Sunlight Stadium now. And that's where you have all your ICC championship was there. You had, your friendlies with Haiti and Spain, and Brazil, Colombia is going to be in that stadium. So if they could find some space next to the Dolphin Stadium, I think that'll work. And it also will incorporate the other counties, because it would have been downtown Miami-Dade County, which would have been too far for the county up north of us, which is Broward, and Palm Beach County, which is north of Broward. You put it closer to the Dade-Broward border, which is where the Dolphin Stadium is, and then you can get more people that have access to it. And so I think that would be important. So I think the stadium issue hasn't died. but it has. I think it's gone on summer vacation because you really haven't heard too much about it.
All right. I'm going to throw it over to Ben for one last question, and then we're going to let you go. So, Ben, go ahead. What do you got?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, George. It's just one last question, then I'll let you get away.
Okay.
Obviously, it's a very opinionated question, really, and we talk a lot on this show about the quote unquote best team in the world, or at least the best team in Europe. Obviously, the Champions League, the competition for that. I firmly believe that this year, for me, and for the people that do the show, this it's definitely the closest Champions League for me in a long time. What with Real Madrid with the signing of Kroos and Rodriguez, and Bayern getting Lewandowski, which in my opinion will score more goals than Mandzukic. I think Barcelona's defence has improved, and Chelsea have obviously added Costa. Who, in your opinion, will win the Champions League this year, and who do you think is the best team in the world at this moment in time now the window's closed?
Ooh, man, that's a good question. I'm terrible at predictions. Man, let me see. I would say, wow. You know what? All signs to me point to Chelsea. They really do. Mourinho has experience. They finally have a center forward in Diego Costa who can score consistently. They really haven't had that. Probably Didier Drogba left, or maybe a year or two before he left, because he was on the downside of his career when he left. And Fernando Torres hasn't worked, didn't work out obviously. So they've struggled to find a center forward who can score goals, and now Diego Costa is doing it. They have good young attacking players midfield with Eden Hazard and Oscar. Ramirez is good in the midfield, holding midfield along with Matic. Mm-hmm. So their deep Thibaut Courtois has experience. People forgetting Thibaut Courtois helped Atletico Madrid win a La Liga last year and got them to the Champions League final, or helped them get to the Champions League final. And Mourinho knows how to organize a defense. So I think that Chelsea is the team to beat. It would not. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea win the Champions League. The best team in Europe, it's usually that's the standard. So I would say Chelsea is the prohibitive favorite, I would say, by mind, to win the Champions League. But I think people need to watch out for Bayern Munich. I was able to cover them the last 2 seasons when I was at Gold TV. And let me tell you, Bayern Munich, they got Xabi Alonso. They got beat with their bench with Juan Bernat. They got Lewandowski for free. Thiago comes back and is effective, then they will not. That'll help them to overcome the loss of Toni Kroos. They'll have Schweinsteiger. They'll have Lahm, Manuel Neuer. I think Bayern Munich is a team that can beat Chelsea. Real Madrid, they just got beat by Real Sociedad 4-2, and they missed Xabi Alonso bad. Their defense is suspect. I know Sergio Ramos can be clutch, but him and Pepe can also be knuckleheads. Mm. So, that's kind of an unpredictability right there. Barcelona, when Suarez comes back, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Defensively, I still think they're shaky, but if the young kids come through, if Bartra can help out on defense, I think they'll be all right, and they'll definitely be a challenger. But I think my top 2 teams, I know I shouldn't be saying this since I work at BeIN Sport and we do La Liga and everything, but I would say, just what I've seen on paper and everything, Chelsea and Bayern, man, they look strong. And especially Lewandowski. Lewandowski can do what he did at Dortmund. At Bayern, oh my goodness, they're going to be. Remember the 4 goals he scored against Real Madrid a couple of seasons ago in the semis, I believe. Mm-hmm. He's going to have a lot more room to operate when you have Götze and Lahm and coming at you. And then, Thiago and, Guardiola likes to hold the ball for 70%. And you still have Arjen Robben who's healthy, and Frankie Bailly. Man, I would love to see a Chelsea-Bayern final. I have a feeling that's how it's going to shake out. We'll see, but I think Chelsea's the favorite, and I think those 2 teams right now are kind of neck to neck with Real Madrid behind them in terms of the best teams in Europe.
So you heard it here first. Chelsea-Bayern final and Chelsea to win it. So we'll
Chelsea.
we'll come back to you for the well, hopefully we can get hold of you before the Champions League final, and if your prediction's right, then we can give you the glory on there.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. Because I'm not good at predicting at all. Every time I predict it, it comes out the other way. Last year I think I predicted a Bayern Real final. No, that was right. They played at the semifinal. But it was I think I predicted Atletico Bayern last season. And but this was at the semifinal stage. Mm-hmm. So I predicted that, and that only half of that came true. And then I predicted that Atletico would win. Then they got dusted, mainly in injury time. So, extra time, I should say. So, I don't know. Don't judge my credibility if my predictions don't come true. I'll put it like that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm showing off, but we try and do predictions on the show. We kind of it's kind of something that we like to do just so we can, I guess, measure ourselves. And I actually had 2-1 Real Madrid in extra time for that game. I actually got it bang on, but unfortunately I didn't put my money where my mouth was, so I couldn't enjoy it. But yeah, thank you for asking your questions.
Yeah. So, George, I want to, on behalf of my co-host, I definitely want to thank you for joining us. I know we kept you a little bit past that 8:00, so hopefully they were doing a lot of, that pregame stuff that they normally like to do, and haven't kept you away from the match at all.
No, don't worry about it. I was watching. It just started, so I'm kind of watching while I was talking to you guys.
Awesome.
I'm lucky. When you work in sports broadcasting, you can watch one thing and focus on whatever you're dealing with. So I was able to keep an eye on my Hurricanes and talk to you guys at the same time. So
awesome.
It's all good.
Awesome. So George D. Metellus from BeIN Sports, thanks again for joining us, and feel free to call in anytime.
All right, sounds good. Thank you guys for having me. I had a lot of fun. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
So that was George D. Metellus from BeIN Sport. What'd you think, guys?
I thought it was all right. That was great.
I had a lot of fun. I mean, he was really wide open. He gave his opinions, and definitely wasn't afraid to answer any of the questions. I mean, Ben, you had the tough ones for us. I thought it was a great interview. I thought it went really, really well. And unfortunately, Susie Schaff just tweeted 30 minutes ago to us that she's in the middle of a barbecue for Labor Day. So hopefully we'll get her on maybe in the next week or so. So Rob, how was training?
It was great.
Yeah.
Great.
I know we didn't get to kind of, bounce you in and chat or anything like that. So it just,
it's fine.
So just to give you a rundown, Rob, just to catch you up, we did cover all the leagues. We covered MLS. We started to talk a few transfers. Obviously the Falcao one. I don't know if you guys have any more information on the Falcao transfer at all. I haven't seen anything other than what Sir Bob posted, which is basically that it's a done deal to Man United. I'm going to go with that it's done to Man United. I know, Rob, you posted that the Welbeck deal to Arsenal is done as well.
Yes, it is. It's confirmed by Arsenal FC.
Okay, so it's confirmed.
Twitter.
There we go. So that's a done deal.
NBC Sports is reporting that Radamel Falcao has passed his medical.
Okay, and there's and according to Sir Bob, that he's saying the same thing. The medical's passed and the paperwork is in. They're just waiting on the Premier League to sign off on it, according to the Telegraph. So,
what do you guys think about the money he's going to earn every week?
Well,
Have you seen it?
Well, I thought I saw something like $350,000 a week.
Something like that.
265,000.
But I think Monaco's on the hook for like half of that. I thought I saw that somewhere where Monaco was actually paying a big chunk of the wages as part of the loan deal. I mean, Monaco's got to be crazy.
I don't know. Obviously, he must have wanted to go, but for me, it seems no Champions League football. I don't understand. Like, obviously, Man United are trying to keep him for a season to get him there full time. But I mean, if they're paying any of his wages, that seems ridiculous to me.
That's another thing that I thought too. Is like, how does Falcao? I mean, even if he stays put and stays at Monaco, he's still got Champions League play there. Okay.
Yeah.
But if he jumps ship, the other two suitors in this courting ritual, if you want to call it that, are Real Madrid, who are the defending champions and in the Champions League, and Man City, who were offering a full buyout and are are in the Champions League. Could you imagine a Man City with Radamel Falcao? It would be crazy. Yeah, I think if that actually happened, I think George might change his answer from Chelsea to Man City.
Yeah, I mean that it definitely made the difference. I do think he'll just score goals wherever he goes. I mean, when we did the top strikers in the world, I think he was my number one. So, it's a good coup for anybody. I'm really surprised. Like I said, my brother's a Man United fan, as I've said on there before, and he's absolutely so excited about him coming, and I'm really surprised. But yeah, I think it's definitely Van Gaal that's got him there. I don't think
Oh sure.
But I mean, it's the name as well, though, isn't it? I remember I've said on air a few times, Man United have got maybe one or two transfer windows where their name will count for a lot, and I think we've seen it, really.
Rob, you were saying?
I think it's going to be interesting of how Van Gaal is going to use the formation with all these players that they have. Because if you look at the depth that this squad has, it's huge.
Yeah, I would agree because there are a lot of duplication of players, but I think one thing that many people want to point out, even with the Falcao addition, is there's still no spine at Man United. They did add Daley Blind today, and that's going to definitely go a long ways in terms of building up that defense. And in fact, I would actually suggest to you guys that the Daley Blind acquisition today is actually bigger than the Radamel Falcao acquisition because United has strikers like Van Persie and Rooney, and technically up until that point they had Welbeck as well, but they didn't have a spine. They didn't have a central midfielder. They didn't have a good central defense. They got picked apart, basically this weekend. It felt like where they were, they just weren't solid in the back. So I think the Daley Blind acquisition for them today is actually a much, much bigger deal.
I think they needed a defensive midfielder more than they needed another striker. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I think that was more important for me. But yeah, I think now that they're trying to fill the holes, and I think they've filled some. And I definitely do think that the formation needs to be worked on. But I mean, the players are there now. They've not really, it's down to Van Gaal now to impress. I do think the one thing I will say is with all this money spent, I don't think Van Gaal's going to get very long if he doesn't get the job done.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I think, Rob, and something that Ben and I talked about, because there's no league action this week other than MLS, I think what we're probably going to do is do a little bit more of a transfer recap next week as part of our big show, in addition to having any guests that might be coming along. Like I'd said, maybe what we can do is we can hit up Susie again later on tonight and see if she'll be available for next week. I do know that we're pretty much confirmed that George Metellus' co-worker, Jeremy St. Louis, who is normally the host of The Locker Room, which they run on BeIN Sport on Monday nights, is coming on next week with us, and he's going to probably call in live after the Locker Room show itself, so that'll be pretty cool to have him on. So that's at least where I've left it with him in email. So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of, we hit a couple of the big transfers. I think we'll probably skip over the rest of the transfer news just so that we can move things along with the Champions League, because we're already a 2 hour and 20-minute show, and I'm sure Sir Bob is ready to pull his hair out. So, but let's head over to the Champions League. Obviously, we had the draw this week, guys, and what we'll probably do is just go through the groups real quick. Maybe say one or two words, and make a prediction as to who's going to come out of each group, just for laughs. I'm not going to bother posting these on our Facebook page or anything like that, but just to kind of chit chat about them. So. Let's kick it off. Obviously, like I said, they had the drawing this past Thursday for the Champions League groups. Group A is Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Malmo, and Olympiacos. So, Rob, I'm going to go to you first. What are your thoughts on that group, and who do you think is going to come out of that one?
For that group specifically, I think if you look at it realistically, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you have Atletico Madrid and Juventus, the champions in their own domestic league. And I think it's going to be quite a battle to see those two fight for the first spot. And
Rob, do I still have you? Rob, are you still there? Ben, do I have you?
Yeah, you do have me.
Oh, there's Rob.
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, no, something happened. No, I think Atletico
and Juventus are going to fight to the death for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I see it, I think, honestly, Atletico Madrid gets first place and Juventus gets second, strongly.
Yeah.
And Olympiacos gets the Europa League spot.
Okay. Ben, how about you?
I've got the same two teams to go through, but I've got in a bit of a different order. I think Juventus will win the group. I think Atletico Madrid are gonna miss Costa and Courtois for me, and I don't think they're gonna have quite a good a season. And I think Juventus are going to do better. I tipped them last season to be moving forward, and I think they will. So got Juventus first, Atletico Madrid second, and same as Rob, I've got Olympiacos for the Europa.
Yeah, Ben, I think I want to stick with you. I'm not gonna put them in order because I'm a Juventino, but I'm gonna say you're right about the two teams moving through in Atletico and Juventus, and certainly Olympiacos. Unfortunately, Malmo got a pretty bad draw, as we'll see City did in a few minutes as well. So let's go over to Group B, where we've got FC Basel, Liverpool, Ludogorets, and Real Madrid, the defending champion. Ben, how about you? What do you think of this one?
I think this one's, for me, is one of the easier groups to predict. I do think Liverpool calls a little bit of ways, but I don't think they're going to have enough to win this group. I think Real Madrid will win it, Liverpool in second, and then I've got Basel for Europa League.
Mm-hmm. Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with what Ben said. I think Liverpool haven't had European experience in the Champions League in a while, and Real Madrid are just, with this incredible squad that they've grown from the last few months. And I'm going to say Real Madrid top the group and Liverpool goes second, and Basel gets the Europa League spot.
Just to be contrarian, I'm with you guys on the two. I think Real Madrid and Liverpool certainly, but Ludogorets, I'm just gonna take them. This is my long shot of the tournament. Is Ludogorets going through on the Europa position? After that performance, to get through to the group stage of Champions League, this is the team that their midfielder had to play goal because their goalie got red carded. And the guy makes 2 saves, so something special about what's going on at Ludogorets. And so
you just love an underdog, Joe Day.
Yeah, exactly. I do. But and I'm taking them as my big underdog there. So
okay,
let's go over to Group C because I think Group C is a very interesting group. And Rob, I'm going to start with you. We've got Monaco, Bayer Leverkusen, Zenit, and Benfica. I mean, this is a tough group to call. What are your thoughts, Rob?
This for me, I think, is also one of the hard groups to predict. Quite a tasty group, to be exact. Looking at this group, I'm thinking, wow, who's going to qualify for this and who's going to get the Europa League spot? For Monaco, I don't really think they're going to get quite as much as they were expected, considering that the loss of Falcao and James Rodriguez, which is surely a big loss for them. Mm-hmm. But they still can produce something. And for me, I think that they get the Europa League spot. Now, for Benfica and Zenit St. Petersburg, that's quite a hard one to predict. I think that Benfica can do what they could do because of their European experience and the fact that they are reigning Portuguese champions, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Benfica is.
So,
I think they've won it the past 4 or 5 years in a row, too.
So I think that should help them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And for the second place, I really would like to see Bayer Leverkusen get that second spot. They're a really underrated club in Germany, and they have players like Heung-Min Son, Lars Bender, Stefan Klemming, all those players. And for me, I think that's going to help a lot. So I'm going to say Benfica gets first, and Bayer Leverkusen gets second, and Monaco get Europa League.
Europa. How about you, Ben?
I've got Leverkusen to win the group. I just think Monaco are going to miss Rodriguez and Falcao a little bit too much, but I've still got Monaco to come out of the group in second, and I've picked Benfica just over Zenit for the Europa League place.
I'm going to go a little different. This Zenit team plays really well. And if I remember right, this is AVB's team, and he's got them playing very, very well. I'm going to take Benfica to win this group, but I'm actually going to take Zenit to finish second. And I think Leverkusen will take the Europa spot. I think Monaco is just such a mess at this point that I don't think that they're going to put up any kind of fight. They're going to be kind of Marseille last year in the Champions League group stage, where there was nothing. And Arsenal and Napoli, they walked all over that Marseille team. I think this Monaco side is going to be something like that, and just in shambles. So I'll go Benfica, Zenit, and Leverkusen to Europa. Let's go to Group D, which is another good group. Not as, I don't think it's as difficult to call, though. This is Arsenal, Borussia Dortmund, Galatasaray, and Anderlecht. So Ben, let's start with you. What do you got?
I fancy Dortmund to win this group. I like the look of Adrian Ramos. I think he's going to score a few goals here in the league as well. But I think it'd be the difference. I just don't think Arsenal are going to have enough going forward to compete on as many fronts as they want to. So I think I'm going to take Borussia Dortmund first, Arsenal second, and Galatasaray for Europa.
Now, how about you, Rob?
I'm going to agree with Ben there, but going to switch Borussia Dortmund to go second and Arsenal to go first place, just because I still have faith in this Arsenal team that usually do well in European competitions in the group stage, and hopefully that this transfer of Welbeck and all their players going back, especially with the loss of Giroud, that they can really do something in this group.
All right. I think I'm going to stick with Dortmund first. I think it's going to be a tough fight right at the top there between Dortmund and Arsenal, but I am going to stick with Dortmund. I think that they're too strong, very, very strong midfield. Marco Reus is there, so they're going to be, and they have the experience in the Champions League, both in the group stages and going all the way to the final just a couple of years ago. So I'm going to go.
Just while you say that, I think Marco Reus. I think I read that last minute he's gone to Man United. I'm just checking.
Oh, that would be interesting. I may actually.
I'm not sure. Carry on talking. I'll have a look whilst you don't.
All right. So I would right now, pending that information, I would say Dortmund first, Arsenal second, and Galatasaray over to Europa. And again, this is a good Galatasaray side. Wesley Sneijder there. They've obviously lost Didier Drogba. They've lost that experience, but I think these other two teams are just going to be too tough for them to overcome. So let's move on to Group E, which is just certainly a group of death, and one that has got Sir Bob in a tizzy. That is Roma, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, and CSKA Moscow. What a group. Ben, since you're researching, I would normally go to you on this one first, but I'm going to go to Rob first. What are your thoughts on this group?
Concerning what I saw last year when Bayern played or draw with Real Madrid, Manchester City in their group, I think that this is going to be quite an interesting group. And for me, in a way, I think Bayern have more of the advantage just because of the quality. If you're comparing it to Manchester City, I think Bayern has the advantage in that, with the midfield and obviously Lewandowski up front competing with Sergio Aguero.
Okay.
So for Roma, I see them. I was looking at one of those clubs that were supposed to act that might pull up a surprise in the Champions League, but being drawn in this tough group, it's going to be really tough to see them advance to the round of 16. But if so, at worst, they make it to the Europa League spot. So I'm going to say Bayern first, Man City second, Roma in the Europa League spot.
Okay. Ben, how about you?
I was looking to see if I could see if it's gone through. I saw it somewhere. It might have been a Twitter link. I don't know how reliable the source is, but I think it was Royce to Man United on loan. But I've been wrong before. Anyway, we'll go to the group. For me, you got to feel a little bit sorry for Man City. I mean, I know Sir Bob's upset in the chat, but for me, I think I've got Bayern to win this group. For me, this is the only season in a while for me that Bayern are going to be run close to be the best team in the world. So I'm sticking Bayern to win this group. I think Man City will definitely have enough to come out of this group though, and I've got them second. But this is really a real group of death, and Roma is a really, really good team. But I've gone for Bayern first, City second, and Roma to take the Europa League spot.
Yeah, I want to be the underdog guy here, but I just don't see it. I think I agree with both of you guys in that order: Bayern, City, and Roma, and Moscow's out. It just, boy, Rob, I'm with you where you thought that Roma could really be one of those teams that causes a stir, causes some upsets, wins a group or something like that, and especially if they had the right draw, let's take that Roma group and put them in that Bayer Leverkusen, Zenit, in that Group C. I think we're taking Roma to win the group, but not in this configuration. So, I'm with you guys. Munich City, Roma to Europa, and Moscow back to the cold Siberia, I guess. So let's move on to Group F. Another tough group. Paris Saint. Well, all these groups should be tough. It's Champions League, so PSG, Barcelona, Apoel, and Ajax. Ben, let's go to you first. What do you think?
I think it's like you said, you're going to get groups where you're going to have two tough teams, and I think this is another one of them. This PSG team is really good, and it'll run the French league for me. I can't look past them. But for the group, I've got Barcelona to win the group, PSG second, and Ajax to take Europa League.
How about you, Rob?
For this group, I agree with Ben. For Ben as well. I think that despite the fact that Barcelona are, I think, not exactly in a tough group, but competing with PSG, it's going to be quite interesting on what these two teams are capable of, as well as Ajax, who I actually thought would be drawn in also an easier group. But for me, I don't think it's possible for them to compete and able to beat this PSG squad and Barcelona away, not in Amsterdam. So I think Barcelona will top the group, PSG and Ajax get Europa.
And I'm with you guys on this one as well. This PSG side, I think we're looking at them as so strong and so good, but it's really more or less what they're playing against in the French league is just they're so far ahead of any team that's in second place there that they just look like these world beaters, and unfortunately, I don't think they, I think they probably finish maybe second or third in the Premier League. They probably finish second or third in the in La Liga. So I'm going with you guys. I'm going with Barcelona first, PSG second, especially if Barca, gets enough out of Luis Suarez in this group stage. I think there's no way that they don't run over these teams. So Barca, PSG, and Ajax over to Europa. So let's move over to Group G. Actually, before we move over to Group G, I'll just mention the breaking news. Manchester United have confirmed the signing of Radamel Falcao on a 1-year loan from Monaco. So we have breaking news there that and the 1-year loan with an option to buy on that one. So kind of what we expected, but now it's official that it's been announced. So let's move to Group G. I think this one, guys, is an easy one to call. Chelsea, Schalke, Maribor, and Sporting de Portugal. Ben, I think you're up next. What's your take?
Yeah, I think for me this looks like the group to bet on if you wanted to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is probably the easiest one to predict for me. Mm-hmm. I think Chelsea will win this group. I think the acquisition of Costa and Courtois, but for me Costa was the missing link. This is the best Chelsea team for me in years. I think they'll crush this group, and I agree with what we was talking about earlier with George. I think this year Chelsea are serious challengers for the Champions League. Like I said, I think it's the best team in years, so I do think they'll win the group. I think Schalke for me is a standout second best team. I mean, once you look past Chelsea, this Schalke team should finish far above the Sporting team that I've got in third for the Europa place. So I've gone Chelsea, Schalke, Sporting for Europa.
I agree. Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Ben as well. I think Chelsea are just highly dominant with the squad that they have. And first, if I had to choose a second place, I would have to say Schalke. I think they are also highly underrated with many players like Draxler, Sidney Sam, Farfan, Huntelaar. And I just have no way of seeing them going out. So I'm going to pick Chelsea first, Schalke second, and Sporting third.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this, because I agree with you in the exact order. What if we took Roma and threw them in this group? Do we change the top two? Rob, why don't you go first?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Can you say it again?
If we take Roma and put them in this group, let's say we take Maribor out and we go Chelsea, Schalke, Roma, and Sporting. Do you think we change, or do you think it's still going to be Chelsea Schalke?
No, I think it's still going to be Chelsea Schalke.
Okay.
Because going back to what I said earlier, Roma just don't have enough European experience in having to play all these other clubs within Europe. So it might be a challenge.
Okay, how about you, Rob? What do you think? I mean, I'm sorry, Ben.
I think it makes the group more interesting. I think there'll be close games. I definitely think Roma, they'll stand up and be counted. But for me, I agree with Rob. I do think the Schalke team's are quite underrated. It would be close. It is tough to call, but I think I probably lean towards Schalke just slightly, just on experience. I don't think there's really much of a muchness in them. Really, it probably would just come to how they handle it on the day. And I just think Schalke have had a few more of those days.
Yeah, I think, like you said, though, it would make this group much more interesting, and it would make the Schalke Roma match really something to watch, because that would definitely be the second place match. So it would be a lot more fun to watch. Let's go and hit the last group, Group H. That is Athletic Club. It's Athletic Bilbao, FC Bate Borisov, FC Porto, and Shakhtar Donetsk. This is a little bit of a snoozer group for me, guys, but certainly an interesting group because of the quality level of all four teams. So, Ben, how about you? What do you think of this one?
This is like the kind of group that you'd be fast forwarding through if you had it saved on your box, I think. But for me, I'm going to go for Porto to win the group. I think they've got just a little bit more, and I also think that the experience is going to count for them as well. Obviously, winning it at a time as well. For me, I've got Bilbao to come second. I do think it's quite close between Porto. I wouldn't be that surprised if those positions were switched. But I think that Bilbao will come second. And I've gone for Donetsk after that. I don't think Bate Borisov are going to pick up any points, if any, really. I've gone Porto, Bilbao, and then Shakhtar for Europa.
How about you, Rob?
I agree with Ben, but I'm going to switch out Shakhtar Donetsk for Bilbao. I think Shakhtar Donetsk have not exactly the quality, but I think they have some underrated players like Bernard, Luis Adriano, and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be quite interesting. But going to what Ben said, yeah, it is a sleeper group. It's not that interesting at all. It's kind of like I probably would disagree on you if I say that. It's like the Chelsea group. I think it's a bit self-explanatory. Yeah, in a way.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Porto's going to win this group, but I think you're right, Rob. Where this Bilbao Shakhtar Donetsk matchup is really going to be, it's going to indicate who's going to win second place. Just like we're talking about, if we had Roma in that Schalke group there, that it would be Schalke Roma. They would really have to fight it out. I think Athletic and Shakhtar really do bring, a tasty little entertaining match to this group. So. But I think I'm going to go with Bilbao, just based on the competition they have to play throughout the year, like the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid. Just they come from a much better league, so I'm going to stick with them. But Porto is definitely the class of this group for me, and I think I'll take Athletic in a very, very close. This could be a goal differential thing, but Athletic over Shakhtar Donetsk, and Shakhtar definitely going to Europa. So. Let's close out Champions League. That I don't have a list of when the matches actually start. I can certainly look that up quickly here.
I've got it if you want me to tell you. It kicks off on Thursday the 18th.
Okay, so Thursday. Oh no, you mean Tuesday the 16th?
I've got Thursday the 18th. Is it Tuesday the 16th? Maybe.
It is. It is September the 16th.
Yeah,
so it's
Tuesday the 16th.
Yep. Oh, okay, so it must be wrong on the site. Then they've listed it wrong.
Yeah, so that's when. So we have a couple of weeks before those matches will take off, and then we'll go from there. So onward to the Europa League real quick, and we're not going to get as detailed into these as we are. They're just as everyone likes to point out, the Europa League is almost like the bastard child until we get at least to the knockout stages. So what I'll do is I'll give you the four teams and just give me a winner of each group, I think, and we'll just go from there. Group A is Apollon, FC Zurich, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Villarreal. Rob, who's going to win that group?
I think it's going to be Villarreal.
Okay, Ben, how about you?
Villarreal.
Yeah, me too. Villarreal. Although Mönchengladbach is really going to give a little bit of a trouble for
Yeah.
them there. So
I
that's
can't
for
look
sure.
past those two, though.
Yeah. Group B is Club Brugge, FC Copenhagen, Helsinki, and Torino. Ben, what do you got?
I would go with Torino.
Okay. Rob, how about you?
I think this is one of the groups that's a bit more interesting. For me, there's 3 teams here that could win this group.
Sure.
I think even Copenhagen could have a bit of a say in this group.
Yeah. How about Rob? How about you?
I'm also going to say Torino as well, despite the fact that they've lost many players.
Yeah.
But I think they can see their way through.
I think you're right as well. I think Torino. It's going to be close between Torino and Copenhagen, but I think that they did well to add a Maori at the end of the transfer window here to get them through in this competition. So, Group C: Astras Tripoli, Besiktas, Partizan, and Tottenham Hotspur. Rob, how about you?
I'm going for Spurs.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I'm going for Tottenham.
Yeah, pretty easy on that one. Tottenham for sure. Group D: Celtic, Astra, Giroud. Well, forget it. They're not going to win it. Salzburg and Dinamo Zagreb. Ben, actually, Ben, you're up. Who do you got?
I was just finding it interesting the pronunciation. Astra Giragu, I think. Anyway, like I said, for me, I think Salzburg win this group. This Celtic team, they're not impressing me at all. They're not even doing very well in the Scottish Premier, which is not a very strong league to say the least. But saying that, I do think this is quite a weak group, so I still think Celtic will come out of this group. But yeah, I've got Salzburg to win.
How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I agree. Salzburg.
Yeah, Salzburg for me as well in this one. Although, if Celtic ever finds their way, they may give them a little bit of a game. So, moving on to Group E: Estoril Praia, FC Dinamo Moscow, Panathinaikos, and PSV Eindhoven. This is probably one of the more interesting groups that we're going to see. Actually, I'm sorry. I think, Rob, you're up.
I'm going for PSV.
PSV? Okay. Ben?
Yep, I'm going for PSV as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think Dinamo Moscow, is a little underrated in this one. But I think you're right. I think you're both right that PSV is definitely going to win this group. So, Group F: Saint Etienne, Dnipro, Inter, and Qarabag FK. Ben, what do you got?
Inter Milan for me.
Yeah, Rob.
Inter.
Yeah, Inter too. This is the one where you got to watch out for Saint Etienne because if the true Saint Etienne shows up, they're going to really give Inter a hard time. But I think you guys are right. So, Group F: Feyenoord, Rijeka, Standard Liège, and Sevilla. Rob.
I'm definitely going Sevilla.
Mm-hmm. Ben?
Reigning.
Yeah, Sevilla for me, definitely.
Rob, like you said, reigning champion, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
No doubt. Group H: Everton, Krasnodar, Lille, and Wolfsburg. This is a tough one. Ben, what do you got?
Yeah, this is a close one for me. It's going to be between Everton and Wolfsburg, but I'm going to lean slightly towards Everton. I just think that they've got a good group of players there, and they're very settled, so I'm going to say Everton to win.
How about you, Rob?
I'm going to go for Everton as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys as well. I think, although I think, like you guys said, that you're going to see a little trouble from Wolfsburg. I think you're going to see a lot of trouble from Lille too if they play their defensive style. They could turn over a Wolfsburg side and maybe sneak in here as well. But I think you guys are right. Everton is definitely the class of this group. Group I: Sparta Praha, BSC Young Boys, Slovan Bratislava, and Napoli. Ben.
It's Napoli for me by quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Rob?
Yeah, Napoli as well.
Yeah, Napoli. I just got to make sure that they get their heads out of their you-know-whats and play well because they have not been doing that well lately. So, Group J: Aalborg, Dinamo Kiev, Steaua Bucharest, and Rio Ave. Rob?
This is quite an interesting group. I'm going to go with Dynamo Kiev for this one.
Ben?
Yeah, this is one of the a bit of the sleeper groups for me again. Really, I kind of looked over this group, but still saying that I'd have to go with Dynamo Kiev.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go against you guys. I'm sick of agreeing with you, so I'm gonna go with Bucharest. So, and again, Bucharest has been there,
Joe.
but Bucharest has been there before, so
Yep, that's true.
That's what I'm banking on. So, Group K: Fiorentina, Guingamp, Dinamo Minsk, and PAOK. PAOK. Ben.
Fiorentina for me.
Yeah, Rob?
Fiorentina.
No doubt Fiorentina on this one. I don't even think this group's going to be close. And the last group, Group L. FC Metellus Kharkiv, Lokeren, Lege Warsaw, and Trabzonspor. Another sleeper group. Rob, Rob, let's go to you first.
I think this is going to be also quite an interesting group, but just for the sake of how much they've been suffering, and I got to go with Warsaw.
Yep, Ben, what about you?
This is the closest group for me. I think you could, just roll the dice for this group, but I'm going to go Trabzonspor to win it, but I think Metellus they'll run it close. And even Legia Warsaw side, it's not great, but in this group it's got a chance. So yeah, but I'm going to go for Trabzonspor.
Yeah, Rob, I was thinking along your lines. Legia Warsaw got so screwed out of that whole deal with Celtic in the Champions League that yeah, I think I'm gonna back them as well. I think I'm gonna back Warsaw, but you're right. I think Metellus is going to be a difficult out. I think Trabzonspor is definitely going to be a difficult out. This is going to be a good group to watch. For the Europa League in general. So matches on this one, I'm just going to take a quick peek on their site here and let you know that they're looking at match day of September 18th for Europa. So that'll be the first matches of the Europa League season. So a couple more things I want to do. Just want to cover the CONCACAF Champions League scores that we had from this past week, and then we'll hit the Blackburn banter and Sir Bob's Man City corner that he's been patiently waiting for, and we'll close it out. So this is, let me just take a quick peek here at my list of matches, and I'm just going to run up to, I believe it is it's the Tuesday, August 26th. We had New York Red Bull 2-0 over FAS. We had Saprissa 3-0 over Esteli. Comunicaciones 1-1 draw with America on Tuesday the 26th. On the 27th, we had Leon and Herediano to play to a 1-1 draw. This one's an interesting one, and I didn't see the box score for this one. I'll have to check it out later. Pachuca 7-3 over Municipal. And moving on to Thursday, Waterhouse 4-1 over Tauro. Olympia 6-0 over Alpha United. Ajulenes 1-0 over Chorillo. And then our games don't pick up again until Tuesday the 16th. So that's our recap of the quick CONCACAF Champions League scores. We'll probably start doing a little more table work with the Champions League once we start hitting these last matches on the 16th. So, Ben, let's take it over to the Blackburn banter. Let's first of all, I'd like to mention that I didn't see Jordan Rhodes move, so I think we made an accurate prediction on that one from a couple weeks ago. But Ben, what do you got in the banter corner for us today?
Yeah, that was really the one positive to come from this week. Really was the Jordan Rhodes staying. There was 3 bids. The last one was a £12 million bid that was turned down. So that's good. The board has shown some ambition for once. But as far as the game went, Blackburn ended up losing 3-1 to Wolves. It was at Molyneux. It was a close game, chances wise. But on the face of it, some defensive mistakes, and Wolves were the better team really. Blackburn had a couple of defenders out, and we was missing our striker, and we've got quite a small squad really, so it's not the biggest surprise, although I was still disappointed. But yeah, no, Jested definitely didn't help. But on the upside, with the international break coming up, gives us a chance for the players to come back, and we had signed one player in the last week, centre back from Everton, Shane Duffy, which is a big 6'6" mountain, which is definitely what we need, especially with Grant Hatley making loads of mistakes. But I believe we signed someone as well in the last minute whilst I was doing the show, which I didn't really get a chance to look at, which I'll have a look later. So hopefully it's another defender. But yeah, we come back after the international break and we play Wigan at home, who are on 7 points, the same as Blackburn. So it's going to be a tough game, and we're going to be one of the favourites definitely to be top 6. So it's a big 6-pointer again. But as it stands, Blackburn are in 14th, 2 points off the playoff after 5 games.
All right. So that'll do it for us for the banter this week. And also, like we had mentioned, they did pick up that goalie in the transfer window last second, which we talked about just at the beginning of the show. So let's move on to the Man City corner, which, 24 hours ago, guys, was the Falcao to Man City story that was pretty much broken down into a 48-hour news process. And here we are 24 hours later, and he's worked his way over to United across the way. So our Man City corner kind of fell apart, at showtime, basically, is what it came down to. But we can talk about their loss to Stoke this weekend. I don't know if you guys did. Either of you guys have a chance to see it? Rob, did you see the Man City Stoke match?
No, I did not. I was actually out at a tournament.
Okay.
So therefore I missed it.
Ben, how about you? Did you get a chance to see it?
No, I didn't get a chance to see it. I was away with my girlfriend.
I did see a little bit of the match, and I'm going to just pull up the box score here because from what I got to see, because this was, I believe, Saturday morning, and I was actually coaching my daughter's U8 team to a 1-1 draw this weekend. When does a draw feel like a loss? When your best player hits the post 3 times. So, so I want to get the box score up here because I just want to take a look at it. Because from what I did see from the match this weekend, they held a ton of the possession in this one, and I'm just having trouble seemingly getting this box score loaded up here, but really looked to me like they absolutely dominated the match against Stoke. Stoke scored on a counter, and I just can't remember who it was, but it was strictly a counterattack that led to the only goal. And I'm sure Sir Bob will have a little bit more, and I'm sorry that our Man City corner is not quite as refined as it normally is. But that counter came in the 58th minute by Diouf. But just wanted to look at the stats here quickly in this one. And as suspected, Man City holding the possession 72-28, outshooting Stoke 16-7, but shots on goal, gentlemen, 2-2. How are you going to win a match when you're only putting 2 shots on target? You're going to dominate 72% of the possession. You can only manage 2 shots on goal. It's just not enough.
And from 11 corners as well, yeah. So.
Yeah, 11 corners there as well versus 4 for Stoke. Just, and City even hit the woodwork once in this one. They've had 9 shots blocked. You can't, obviously you want to tip your cap to Stoke for blocking 9 shots. That's quite a bit. But when you're possessing 72% and you're taking 16 shots, you got to do better putting them on goal, I think. So
I think Pellegrini hit the nail on the head really when he said they weren't creative enough. I think the team and the fans will hold their hands up for that. They dominated. Obviously, you could see that in the possession and the amount of shots taken, but overall not creative enough really for me. But saying that, you have to hold your hand up and give some credit to the Stoke team. It's a good Stoke team, a really organised Stoke team, and I would think this Stoke team would finish top half again this year. That like I said, that they know how to play with their backs to the wall. But I kind of agree with what Pellegrini said. I just think it's one of those things. These kind of things do happen now and again. And the Premier League's a tough league, so I don't think you can really read that much into it over one game.
And I thought this was the case, but I wasn't sure. And Sir Bob mentioned it in the chat. It was an awful goal Joe Hart let in. Really got beat between his legs, and should have done better with it to make the save. But obviously in the end they let it go. It's also with Stoke. Just a quick little note with them. Jeff Cameron, defender from the U.S. men's national team, will not be moving on. He was not transferred at the deadline, so he'll be staying at Stoke. He was looking to get transferred to a side that would allow him to play that central defender position, and because at Stoke he's not. He's been playing more of a wing back and a defensive midfield position, and they couldn't just manage to get anything together. So again, first loss of the season for City, 1-0 at home to Stoke, and this is going to be a tough Premier League season. So these guys are all you're going to see them suffer losses. It's not like they're going to run through the entire season undefeated. This is not a Bundesliga situation where they could just run through like Bayern Munich did last year. So that's it's expected, and we'll just see how they can recover from it. They're going to have 2 weeks to think about it. So let's hit the closing music, seeing that we went through the entire show here. So want to mention next week we will be hosting our 1-year anniversary show. Currently just looking to nail down the final setup with Jeremy St. Louis from BeIN Sport, who will be joining us. We are going to effort a couple of other guests as well, so we're going to do that. We're going to do some MLS coverage. We'll do the Blackburn and ManCity corner, and we will also hit the transfer market and really kind of give our pros and cons on the transfer market. So, Ben, any closing thoughts?
No, it was nice to have George on the show, and hopefully we can, from all of us, we can get more guests on the show and make the show better for everyone that listens to it. So thanks for listening, and we'll do our best to make it as good for you in future.
Rob, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
No, just being here for only a good hour or so, it was good to have George on the show and the interview. And I hope it's good when I hear it eventually in the archives.
Yep, I'm definitely going to post that. So, again, special thanks to George D. Metellus from BeIN Sports for joining us. And for episode 40 of Low Limit Football, I am Joe Usello.
And I'm Ben the Machine.
And I'm Roberto Rojas.
And we'll see you next week. Thanks and good night.
Thanks for listening.